Правника, старшого викладача кафедри приватного права
Department
факультету
of
правничих
Private
наук
Law, Department of
Києво-Могилянської академії, медіаторку, тренерку
Mediator, Trainer,
консенсусних
and
практик,
Consensus Practice,
співзасновницю та почесну
co-founder
членкиню Національної
and
асоціації
honorable member of
медіаторів
National Association
України.
of Mediators
Пані
of Ukraine,
Діано.
Miss Diana.
Так, вітаю, колеги. Чути мене?
Greetings, colleagues. Can you hear me?
Чути.
Yes, we do. Can hear you.
Так, добре.
Good.
Я насправді дуже дякую за
Really, I'm
можливість
grateful for
долучитися
the
до
opportunity to
конференції
join
і
the conference
бути в цьому процесі,
and
який
to be in the
триває, так,
process that's
і ми
ongoing,
продовжуємо робити спільно.
and we
Я
go on.
постараюсь, оскільки ми вже за
I
таймінгом,
would
то
like
я
to,
постараюсь
because
максимально
of our
лаконічно
timing, I would like to be as succinct as
цю
possible
тему. І мене надихнула
topic,
насправді
and
назва
I'm
цього панелу,
inspired
яка
by
була
the name of
перша.
this
Це
panel, that is
про
number one,
медіацію університетів
on
від
mediation
ідеї
in
від
universities,
до
and
результату.
the idea how
І
to
тому
reach
мені насправді було
its
важливо
results. For me, it was
поставити це питання собі, а
to
що
raise
вважати
this question
результатами.
myself.
Тому
What is the result?
теж хочу поділитися такими
So I'd like to
певними
share
міркуваннями
some
з вами про те,
observations,
що
contemplations
можна,
on
варто
what
вважати
and what
результатом.
should be considered to
Точно
be
не
a
треба
result,
зупинятися
and
на
definitely
досягнутому,
not
але
to
питання, що
take a
далі
break
можна робити з
and to move
медіацією в
on.
університетах.
What has to
Я
be done
сподіваюся, зараз буде
with mediation in
перемикатися
the
слайди.
university?
Так.
Okay, I
І
hope
от,
that
власне,
slide will
формулюючи
keep on
питання
working. Yeah,
про
the question
досягнення
is
результату, треба також
achieving
пригадати для
results. We
себе
need to
результат,
remember
для
the
чого ми
results,
намагаємося
why
досягнути.
we
Тому що
need
це ж
to
не про те,
get
щоб
this
аби
result.
медіація була
It's not
просто
about
сама заради
the
себе, чи
mediation for itself.
брендовий, хайповий певний
Trendy, hype-oriented
напрям. Ось у
direction.
всіх має бути медіація в
Everyone
університеті.
has to have mediation
У
at
нас вона теж
universities,
буде, і
so
ми
that's why we're
будемо
going to have it
публічно
here,
впроваджувати.
and we're going to
Питання
heroically no.
вищої мети, воно
The
має
question of the
значення,
higher
і
purpose,
оскільки
higher
у нас до
goal,
спільноти
is
долучаються постійно
because we've got
нові
other you and
натхненні
you
такі прихильники
inspired
медіації,
followers of
але не всі
mediation
можуть
and
знати теж про
ardent
те,
followers.
що
Not everyone may know
розроблялися
that
і такі певні такі стратегічні
certain strategic
робилися розробки, так? І
developments
ось
have
на
been
екрані ви
implemented. And
бачите,
here on the
коли
screen, you could
від
see
Національної асоціації, яка
from the
має
National
особливе місце
Association that has a special
в
place
процесі впровадження
in the
медіації
process
в
of
Україні,
implementation of
що
mediation in
розробляли
Ukraine.
питання,
And
так, як в рухах, як впроваджувати
the
медіацію,
development
виділили
was
3
taken
площини,
how to develop the
над якими
mediation.
треба
And there were
працювати для того,
3
щоб
pillars to
досягнути
work
потрібний
on in
результат.
order to
Так? Тобто
achieve
площина
desirable
медіація як
action.
професія,
The
сформована і сформована,
mediation
ринок
as a job,
та інтеграція
market,
медіації у
and
систему
integration of
вирішення
mediation in the
спорів, і,
system of
власне,
conflict
створення
resolution,
середовища
and also
попиту,
creating
тобто
the
культуру мирного спільного вирішення конфліктів, для
demand of
того, щоб
peaceful conflict resolutions, the
професійні
culture,
групи,
so that
пересічні громадяни
professionals, laymen,
знали,
non-professionals
були
could be
і були
aware
готові
and were ready
до
and
того,
could
щоб
wish to
користуватися медіацією. Я
use
насправді
mediation.
підсвітила
Look, I just
компоненти
highlighted components.
додатково, та що ж ми можемо і
Additionally,
маємо для
what
себе
we can and
вкладати
we should
в роботу
invest
над створенням цього середовища
in the
попиту, і,
work in
власне,
this
де місце
community, and where is the
університетів
place
в цьому
of
шляху.
universities
Якщо
in
ми
this
говоримо про
long
перший
journey?
компонент,
If we're talking about the first
необхідний рівень
the
обізнаності та розуміння цінності
necessary level
медіації, так, очевидно, що
methods,
університети
mediation,
сприяють цьому,
definitely,
так, і
obviously,
різні компоненти
universities
різних груп.
are a
І
system.
наступні
And
доповіді,
the
які будуть
following
сьогодні, багато
speeches,
якраз вони
we're going
будуть
to
про
have
те, що
plenty. They will be all about
далеко там
that
не лише правники
not only
зацікавлені,
the
і
legal people
очевидно,
are
так,
interested
що
in
не
also
лише
we heard about
правники
this, not only the legal people
можуть,
are interested,
мають
are able to
роль і
have
своє
to
місце в
have their
справі
role in
медіації, так?
the
А насправді дуже
mediation
багато
job, but
професійних груп
also
можуть
lots of professional groups who can
наповнювати як
fill
пул професійних
like a
медіаторів, так і
professional
бути
pool
користувачами,
and to be also
обізнаними
the users,
користувачами або
aware users,
популяризаторами медіації в Україні.
popularizers of mediation in Ukraine.
Ще один компонент – це
One more
власне
component is
профілактика,
all
система
about
управління конфліктами,
prevention of
тобто
conflict
яким чином
management.
медіація
How
вбудовується
does the
в
mediation, how is the
системі чи в систему
mediation
управління
is
конфліктом,
inbuilt
ну і
into
власне
the
дослідження.
systematic
І
conflict
тут так
resolution
само,
and the
як і в
research into it.
дослідженнях є
The
місце в
same here in the
університеті,
research,
але
and this is the place
також
for
я окремо зупинюся
universities.
далі
And
трошки
also I
в
would like to
питанні
highlight a little bit
по
the
тому,
aspect of
яке
how
місце займають
what
медіаційні
place
служби в університетах і
mediational
як це
services
пов'язано з системними
occupy in the universities
підходами
and how
до
is it connected with the
внутрішньоорганізаційних
systematic approaches to the
конфліктів
internal
різних
conflict
типів
resolutions
організацій.
in different types of
І також
organization.
в
And
контексті
also in the
становлення
context of
медіації як професії,
establishing
так, що
mediation as a
таке
job,
стандарт,
that means
професійний
what is
стандарт
standard,
і
professional
яка роль в
standards,
цьому
and
в
what are the
університеті.
roles of the
Але
universities in it. But
навіть
even
перед заглибленням хочу ще, щоб
before
ви
going
шукали
deep, I would like
можливості.
to go one
Тобто
level
все
higher.
це, да, тобто
I mean, all of
впроваджувати
this
медіацію, тобто
implementation of
не просто
mediation.
медіація в
It's not
університеті,
just
бо це
mediation in
класно,
the
це круто,
universities
це
because it's
трендово,
cool,
це
it's
модно, да,
trendy,
а
it's
для
fashionable,
чого?
but actually what
Але
for?
і медіація для
And
чого?
also the
Да?
mediation, what is
І
it
ми
for?
повинні теж для себе
So
ось
we
цей
have
фокус
to
уваги тримати,
have a
що
clear
медіація,
attention that
вона
the
потрібна.
mediation
І
is necessary.
мені дуже важливо
And it's
підкреслити,
very
що
important for me to highlight
в деяких
that
країнах наголос
some
робився на
countries,
тому, що
this
медіація треба, аби
stress was
зменшити
on the
навантаження на
mediation that
судову
it has
систему.
to relieve the stress from the
Трошки
court system,
оцю
legal,
пріоритетність окремо з
judicial.
моєю вашою
And
точкою
I would like to
уваги для
prioritize
регулювання,
your
що це
attention,
один з
your consideration.
важливих
It's one of
цілей
the
для докладання
directions and
зусиль,
purposes
але
where effort
важливо,
should
чи
be applied,
надаємо
but also it's
ми
important
громадянам, коли вони
whether
мають
we give
збори,
options
і тим
for
самим
the
мають
civilians,
доступом
what
скористатись,
method
чи
can they use,
виконуються рішення в
whether
судах і, власне, які
decisions are
ефективні, да, а взагалі, чи
executed,
рішення,
not
які
only
ми
the
відстоюємо,
courtroom
звертаємось вони,
hearings and rulings,
виконуються чи ні.
whether they are
Ну і,
performed.
власне, культура
And
взаємодії
mainly,
це,
the
звичайно,
culture
певний
of
певний
the
перелік
interaction. It's
цілей,
just
які
not a
можуть
complete
бути
list
поставлені на
of
стратегічному рівні.
purposes that
Але
could be
мені
set on
важливо,
the
щоб ми
strategic
ось
level,
цю
but
зв'язку
what
мали.
is key
Тобто у
for me
нас є
is to have this connection.
довгострокові
We have the long-term
стратегічні цілі,
strategic
місце, особливо
purposes,
медіації в
is a place
суспільстві,
of
і
the mediation
відповідно
in
на
the
це
community,
є
and
місце медіації
considering
в
that, also there is a
університеті.
place
Тепер
of mediation in
ще
the universities.
коротенький
And one
такий
more brief
нюанс, да, тобто встановлені
fine point
професії.
is establishing the jobs.
Посилатимусь на Тетяну
I will
Кисельову, яка
refer
робила
to
дослідження з цього
Ms.
приводу,
Kisilova, who did research
власне,
into
за
it,
дослідниками,
namely
соціологами, які
of the
досліджували функціонування і
sociologists
встановлення
who research
професій.
this
Так,
job, like improvement
встановлення
and development
академічних
of
шляхів до
jobs,
кваліфікації, а також
improvement of
створення
qualifications
системи
in
постійного
academia,
професійного розвитку
and
та
non-stop
університетських
professional
стипендій.
development
Це
and
важливі
reaching professional
компоненти для
development
того, щоб
degrees.
певна
These are
медіація
important
стала
degrees
і
so
було
that
визнано
the
суспільством, так,
job is accepted by
професією,
community
і
as
роль
a job.
університетів тут
The
так
role of the
само
university in this
очевидно,
case
що вона
is
важлива.
obviously it's
Тепер як
important.
проходила,
Now,
перепрошую за помилку, як проходила
sorry,
медіація в університети?
how a
Ми сьогодні,
mediation
я
went
насправді
through in
навіть
university.
висвітлила
I do
деякі
apologize for
такі
the mistake.
правила після того, як
I even did
слухала
some editing
презентації.
when I heard this in
Тобто, з чого
presentations.
починали? Спочатку
So
десь
where
з'являлися
we start
якісь
from?
окремі теми,
So
да, тобто
separate
слово,
topics
термін
would come up,
приходило при
one
викладанні
word, a
якихось окремих
terminology,
курсів.
while
Потім
translating
ми
some
рухались до того,
courses.
що створювали
Then we went on
спецкурси.
to
Да,
creating
для цього
special
важливо
courses.
мати
For
певні
this,
да,
it's very
навчальні
important to
програми,
have some
силабуси,
educational
які
programs,
були окремі
syllabuses,
спецкурси
and they
в
were
рамках
special
навчання
courses
на
in the
бакалаврському
frameworks of
або
bachelor
магістерському
degree or
рівні,
master's
літні
level,
зимові школи, тренінги
summer and winter
спеціалізовані
camps
та
trainings,
загальнонавичкові, які
specialized
передавалися
additional and
авіаційній
vocational.
підприємності. При цьому важливо, що такі
Well,
тренінги
I need to mention
проводилися
that
не
these
лише для
trainings were run
студентів,
not
так,
only
але
for
і для
students, but
викладачів.
also for teachers.
Змагання, так,
Competition
міжуніверситетські
between
проекти,
universities,
зокрема, і результатами цих
particularly
міжуніверситетських
the
проектів
result of these
розвивали
projects,
сертифікатні програми, освітні
certificates of
програми, не лише
educational
як
programs,
наслідок
not only
міжуніверситетських
as a
проєктів, але
result
тим не менше.
of the projects, university projects,
Крім
but
того,
but
окремі розвитки,
besides
але
that,
я наголос тут
separate,
зроблю на тому, що це
I
окремі
would like to say
розвідки
that
для того, щоб зробити
separate
виступ на конференції,
conclusions
зробити
were
публікацію,
made
і
to
потім
speak
ми
on the conferences, and
виростали до
then
того, що
we
щоб
grew to the
проводити
level
тематичні
to be able to
конференції не
run
лише з
thematic
медіації,
conferences,
але
not only
ширше,
on
так,
mediation, but
альтернативні
also
програми
broader
розв'язання
alternative
розв'язання спорів.
teaching of
Наукові роботи,
conflict resolution,
потім
scientific
створювалися
works, and also
профільні
there were created
підрозділи, навчальні
profile departments,
лабораторії, так,
educational laboratories,
розроблялись, видавалися, готувались
also
до видання і видавалися посібники, підручники.
educational
Але
guidelines were
теж,
prepared
можливо, не всі
and printed as well.
знають про
Maybe
це,
not
але
all of
знаю, що
you
також
know about this
представники
process, that
університетів
the
активно
representatives of the
участь бере в
universities took an
розробці
active part
професійного
in the development
стандарту,
of the
так,
professional
одного з
standards,
стандартів,
one of
які
the standards
було заявлено до
that was
розробки в
announced
медіації, так,
for
тому що
development of the
спеціалізованих
mediation,
спорах
just mediation
медіатор є сухий,
in the
бізнес-медіатор тощо.
in the
І,
labor
власне, були створені
code
медіаційні
relationship,
служби,
and also
і
mediational purposes were
напевно є
established.
ще щось,
And
про що я
possibly
чула
there
або
is
знала,
something
але
that I
ось
haven't
це,
heard,
власне, те,
don't
яким
know,
чином
but this is actually
відбувалося оце, так,
how
якби така
this
дифузія, якщо
development,
можна
this
сказати, так,
diffusion, if I can use this word,
поєднання і
or
прихід медіації в
connectivity,
університети. Але
cohesion,
наголос ще
how
зроблю на
mediation
такому, що
went
це не лише
has
про форми,
has
але
joined the
знову ж
university.
таки,
It's not about the
мені
forms, it's
здається
also about the
важливим
way.
для
And I think
закордонних
it's
колег
important
про це
also for our
знати, які
international partners to know about it,
нещодавно для
who
себе
have
відкривали
recently
медіацію.
discovered the
Медіація в
mediation
Україні
as
в
such.
університети
Mediation
заходила
trained
теж
in
приходила
universities,
лагідно, так, тому
it
що ви чули про
came into in
приклади,
a very
коли
smooth way,
практики
smoothly.
і
When you could see there are
представники академічної
practices
спільноти
and the
мали
representatives
теми,
of the
від
academia,
яких
they
вони не
had
лише просто
topics,
розробляли
not only develop the product, but also they familiarize with each other, but also to develop some particular tasks. But always there is some place for improvement, and here I would like to highlight several things. So we have here purpose, general purpose or aim, and in the context of the creation of the role of the universities, how
середовище
this
попиту,
community or demand is
можемо ще
created,
побачити
where else we
різні
can
ідеї.
see what to
Необхідний
do
рівень
next.
обізнаності одне,
The
так,
required
а
level of
інший рівень
awareness,
цінності.
but understanding of
Профілактика,
values
системи
another.
управління і
Prevention of
дослідження. І на
system
цих
of
речах я
management. And on
зупинюсь
these points, I would
коротко,
like
але
to
трошки
highlight briefly, but also a little bit
тематично такі
deeper at the
акценти
same time.
розставлю.
I would like just to
Якщо ми
highlight
говоримо про
several things.
необхідний рівень
When we're talking about
обізнаності
some level of
в
awareness
медіації,
in
то з
mediation,
одного боку я
on
можу
the
це
one hand,
знати.
I can,
Так, я
I can
знаю
know
це
that,
слово,
I
там
know this
можу
word,
навіть пояснити, що це
I can
таке, але
explain what it
чи я
means,
знаю,
but
чим
do I
насправді це
know
буде цінно?
whether it will
І
be
якщо
valuable
ми
at all?
розуміємо цю
And if I
цінність, тоді,
understand this
коли в
value,
моєму житті
then if
буде конфлікт,
anything in my
чи
life,
буду я
there's a conflict
пропонувати
that pops up,
медіацію, чи
where I
буду
will
я
be
сама
offering
для
any
себе
kind of
робити
mediation
якийсь набор
service,
медіацій.
whether I will
І це
be
насправді
choosing,
виклик. І
opting
дуже
for
часто навіть
mediation.
самі
This is a kind of
медіатори
challenge. And very often, the
мають
mediators
якийсь смішок, що
themselves,
в своїх
they
конфліктах
have a kind of sin
не
that in
послуховуються
their
порадами
conflicts,
колег
they
медіаторів.
don't
Це може
use
бути
the
пов'язано
services
з
of the
тим, що
mediators. It
нейтрального
may be
медіатора
connected
в такому
with
випадку
that,
буде
that
складно.
finding an
Інколи
unbiased mediator
колеги
will be
кажуть, що
challenging. And my
конфлікт між
colleagues would say that
медіаторами
conflict between
це рівень
mediators is the
зірки,
level
і тому
is the complicated
запросити
level,
когось
challenging.
порозв'язувати
That's why
конфлікти з медіаторами
inviting
це
a mediator to
зробити
resolve
таку
their
інтелектуальну
intermediary
гімнастику
conflict resolution,
досвідченому
it's
медіатору, бо це складно.
because
Але
it's
тим не менш,
challenging. But however,
це ж теж про те, чи
it's
ми
also
насправді
about
практикуємо
whether
те, що
we
розповідаємо, чи
practically
застосовуємо
practice
медіацію для себе.
what
А
we
в
announce.
контексті
But in the
університету
context
в
of
нас
the
насправді
university,
на
the
іншому.
accent is a bit
От я написала
different.
тут так
And as I
приклад,
said
фразу
earlier,
на собі
the
воно
phrase,
краще відчувається,
you feel
чи
it
є
better when
схожі
you've got your
випадки.
first
І я би
hands-on
хотіла
experience, where there
привернути
is
увагу до
this kind
того,
of breach of
а чи є
mediation.
медіація
And
елементом
if there is
корпоративної
mediation, I
культури
said to
самого
myself, it's
університету.
part of the
Я коли
culture of the
готувалась до
university.
цієї
As I was
конференції, до
preparing
цієї
for this
презентації,
speech,
то з
to
пані
this
Русланою
presentation,
проговорювала,
so
кажу,
together with
слухайте,
Ruslana,
дуже
I
багато
talked it
натхненних
over.
людей
There are
хочуть
lots of inspired
поділитися
people who are
своїми
ready to share
бажаннями, а чим я можу
their
бути
ideas,
корисним.
considerations,
І
how
ось я
they can
думаю, що,
be
зокрема, і
useful.
такий певний
And I think
аналіз
besides
помилок або
that, the analysis
таких
into
складних моментів,
mistakes
це теж
and
те, що
challenging
можна
points, it's
переосмислити
exactly
і
what can be
сказати, да,
revisited
ось тут це
and
болить, і тут
re-established.
треба
Okay, it
працювати.
hurts here
І
and it
попри
requires
те,
some
що
work here,
медіація
and there's a lot of
впроваджується
place for
давно,
improvement.
так,
Despite the
але
mediation has been for a long
навіть
time in
ось
Kiev Mohila
розмови з
Academy,
колегами
but even talking with my
попереднього
colleagues
тижня, з тими,
during the
які
previous
мене
week,
знають про
uh,
мене і про медіацію,
will
знають
be
про те,
Monday.
що медіація це
They know that
фантастично і
mediation is
чудово,
a
але коли у
fantastic
них є
thing,
конфлікт, вони кажуть,
but when
ні,
they have a conflict,
нам
they
це
say
не
no.
допоможе.
But it
Ось,
can't help us.
оскільки в мене, ну,
And
скажімо, там є
since
змішання
I've
ролей, я
got
не можу
some
бути
mixed roles,
медіатором
I
для них,
can't
але тим
serve
не
as a
менш
mediator for them. However,
сам факт,
the
та,
whole
що ось
uh,
для того, щоб медіація стала
for
елементом
mediation to
корпоративної
become
культури
part of the
нашого
corporate
університету,
culture in our
значно
university,
більше треба
it's
докласти зусиль,
much
ніж
more
розробити
important,
силабус
and
і
the efforts should
запропонувати
be much
вибірковий
more
курс,
rather than
можливо,
to
комусь
see to
пощастило, в
present
когось є
a
обов'язкові курси.
selective
Да, у нас,
course.
на жаль,
Maybe
більш
somebody has been
вибіркові
happy
курси на
to
тему
have to go
медіації
through them
тощо.
some
Ось, але
special
це про те, що це ще та
with
справа.
that
І також
all
я
about the
знаю
thing.
випадки, такі
And I know
негласні,
the cases,
конфіденційні випадки, коли
some
навіть ці
confidential cases,
університети, в яких багато
where
дуже
employees of
докладено
the
зусиль для
universities
поширення
have
медіації, впровадження різних
have
форм
done a lot
доступності медіації в
to
університетах
facilitate,
і
to improve,
середовищах,
to
але
advocate for
коли стосується якихось
mediation. But
таких
when
конкретних
it's all
конфліктів,
about some
то
particular
люди потім
conflict,
кажуть, а ми
then
знаємо
people
про те,
kind of
що нам
withdraw.
медіація
Look, we
дуже
know that
класно
mediation kind of
спотворена,
is
підвикривлена,
sorted,
і насправді є відчуття, що
shapen,
насправді цінність
and there's
медіації
a feeling that
передається
the value
неправильно.
of
Тому
mediation is
у нас
transferred
велика
wrongly.
справа не лише
So there's a
запропонувати,
huge
але
deal not
зробити це
only to
елементом
offer,
корпоративної
but
культури.
also
Це
to
моє
make it as part
міркування
of the corporate
суб'єктивне.
culture.
Я
This is my
чую
subjective
насправді
vision. I'm
сходні
curious
розмови,
actually to know whether you
бачу
agree
це
with my
якимось
opinion or maybe
розумінням.
not, but I see it
Друга
as
точка
our
уваги це
zone of
контекст
development.
профілактики та
In the
системи
context of
управління
prevention, the
конфліктами.
second thing of conflict
Ми
management,
розуміємо, що
we
медіація це
understand
один
that
з
mediation is
методів.
one of the elements,
Інколи треба
and sometimes we have
пропонувати
to
повний трун,
offer
але системна
the
робота
full
для того, щоб
scale.
як в ролику, який нам
And
щойно
as in the video that we have just seen during the break,
конфлікт як ресурс,
to use the conflict as a
теж
resource,
це не про разову
not
інтервенцію
about
медіації,
one-off
це не
mediation.
про
It's not
окремий
about
механізм,
a separate
коли
mechanism.
десь в
When
якомусь корпусі
somewhere in
університету
some
є
building of the
на якомусь
university,
поверсі,
on some random
приміщенні, де
floor, there's
розміщена
a
медіаційна
premises
служба,
where
і це
mediation
все.
services is. No, no,
Тобто
no,
як
it's more.
насправді медіаційна служба
It's how
вбудована в інші
mediation
процеси
service
в
is
університеті.
embedded in the process of
Це
universities.
непроста,
And
дуже
it's not a simple, it's pretty challenging work, and this is a systematic work. And it's not only when we have a particular conflict, we have diagnosed, and we see that it's mediatable because it's important to work with the components of monitoring, prevention of structures and culture. And here it's all about my pain and my lessons learned. So mediation in Kyiv Mohil Academy has been for a long time. I know about mediation a lot, and I can speak a lot and well. But if infrastructure is not well built, then the results or outcomes of mediation and the university will be insignificant, I would say, or weak. And this is actually true about our case. And what we can work on is mediation has to be integrated. Not only, it's not about corporate culture, like to help to strengthen each other. It's about embedding the procedures and in allocating funds. If there are no funds to support, then there is small part of the team, like one people not a warrior, that will mean the process will drag and will develop slow. So what has to be kept in under our focus of attention, and we could trace whether someone has made some progress. It requires some support. If not. And to wind up, I would like to say that we as mediators, we understand that the approaches to work with the conflicts are different. The power, interest, and right and legislation and other things are absolutely legal approaches to work with one or another conflict. But interaction in the conflict, it's in reality, it's interaction and agreement and implementing changes to the environment is all about that we don't have to wait until the conflict escalates, but to use approaches. Then here I would like to pay attention to that the fact that up until now, mediation is a new thing, especially if you speak about corporate culture.
І коли є нове, то люди чинять спротив і можуть спочатку не знати на смак, і через це тим більше чинити спротив.
People
Інколи
can
підхід
be
прямо
opposed
з
to that.
інтересами
Sometimes the
може
approach
бути
directly
ускладнений,
over
якщо ми
interests
знаємо,
can
що він
be
не має добре працювати.
complicated because
Тому
although we
ідея
know
може
that it should
полягати в
work
тому,
nicely,
що
the idea
важливо
should be
пам'ятати
that
певні
we need
речі
to
на певних вищих рівнях, і тоді
introduce some
легше буде
elements,
впроваджувати те, що
some
ми хочемо
hooks at
впровадити.
later
Тут я окремо
stages,
хотіла
then we will be
сказати,
able
що
to
в моєму
implement what
випадку
we
в
want to
Competencies мені
implement.
було легше
In my
розробити
case, on
тему
Give
медіації
Mahila
саме
Academy, it
тоді,
was easier for me to
коли,
develop
ну,
the
після
topic
того,
of
як прийняли цей
mediation
закон, але
when
насправді ще коли
after
був
the law
старт
was
магістр,
adopted, but when the
магістерської
educational
програми з
standard, the
медіації,
master
з права,
program
да, з'явилося там
of
згадування
law
про
also
процес
mentioned
власне
among the
про
competencies
медіацію. І окремо дякую
mediation,
Сергію
and
Миколаївні, який вплив на це і яка заслуга
I
в цьому
understand
чинності університету.
how
Руслану,
much
дякую. Тому ось
credit
тоді, коли
for
воно
that
там з'явилося, робота
takes
моя
Chernivtsi
з групою
University. So Ruslan, thank you. When I
значно
started
полегшена,
working
тому
at the
я пропоную
university, it was
користуватися
much easier.
стратегічно
So I suggest that
такими
we
речами, які допоможуть нам це
use
робити.
such
І
strategic
на завершення.
tools. And to
Дослідження.
finalize, this
Можливо, я якось
survey,
неправильно налаштувала
maybe I
свої
somehow
механізми в Google.
made a mistake in adjusting search tools in Google when you automatically trace
на тему
what
медіації. Але поки що все, що мені
articles are
приходить, це
published
буде достатньо
regarding
багато,
mediation.
ну, там,
So far,
я не можу сказати
I
кожен
get
день,
quite a
але
lot of
кілька разів тиждень
mentions.
проходить
A
така
couple of
підбірка,
times per
дайджест,
week, I
які
get a
частини там
digest
з'явилися.
regarding
В мене
the
враження,
articles
та, може
dedicated
це
to
моя
this
будь-яка,
topic.
але в мене
That is my
враження про те, що
impression. Maybe it's my
достатньо
bubble,
багато
but
статей
it feels to
досі
me that
серед правників. Досі оглядові
quite a lot of articles are
дрібниць
of
використовують в
rather
своєму протоколі. Не
general
хочу образити
nature. I
мої
don't want to
товариші,
say
чи
superficial.
заохотити, закликати
I
багато
don't
щоб
want
вони
to
були іншими.
offend
Хочу
anyone, but I
подякувати
would suggest that you dig deeper, that everyone digs deeper. What am I speaking about? For example, the use of mediation, the place of mediation among other ADRs, mediation according to civil legislation, etc., etc., etc.
скажімо, такий оглядовий
Therefore,
характер, ознайомчий характер.
these
Вони також
articles
важливі,
are of rather
але вони
informative
хочеться
nature,
глибоко
and I would
і
like
важливе
to
дослідження медіабельності
have
справ.
the
І ось тут
survey of the
кілька втілень.
mediability
Пані
of
Руслано, бачу,
cases, and
завершую.
I see that I
Пані
need to
Діано, у нас
finalize.
майже
Dear
вже 20
Diana,
хвилин, і
it's
можемо
almost
просто,
20
у нас
minutes.
є
Physically,
багато
we are
спікерів,
not
які сьогодні
able to
хочуть
accommodate.
виступити. І ми не
We are
хочемо
speaking for almost
прибігати до
20
того,
minutes.
щоб
We
просто
don't want
вимикати
to
мікрофон і відпускати
have to
питання.
turn
Давайте з
off
повагою один до
the
одного
mic
ставитися і до
when
інших колег. Дуже прошу.
time is up.
Я
Let's
зрозуміла, що я
respect
найбільше
the
порушниця.
colleagues. Okay, I get
Ну,
that
поки що
I'm the
вийшло так,
biggest
вибачте.
violator so far. Yes, it is the
Власне,
case.
це все. Мій заклик був
That's it.
ділитись ширше,
I
глибше
wanted
і
to
не зупинятися
mention
на
that we need to
заклику.
dig deeper
Дуже
and not
багато
to stop at
зробили,
what we have
можливо,
achieved.
ще
We've
більше,
done a
будемо
lot
давати
and we
якісний
can do
результат.
more. and that will
Для
deliver a
стратегічних
quality
цілей
result
України. Дякую.
for strategic goals in Ukraine. Thank you, Diana. Especially thankful for the fact that you highlighted challenge the issue of value of mediation in universities and mediation and the value, and for the fact that you were able to outline the most problematic issues of mediation in university community. Now we'll go to the next speaker. I thank Lisa for the reminder again. We'll be sticking to the agenda. The whole floor goes to Olena Parhomenko, PhD in economy, the associate professor of Taras Shevchenko of the Kharkiv Karazin University. Hope you can hear me well. I hope there are no unpleasant surprises today. So, I'd like to continue on the topic that we already started about the experience of implementing mediation practices and such reconciliation services. I'd like to speak about the experience of our university, of the Karazin National University, in this regard. A couple of words about myself. I am the PhD in economy, the associate professor, and the projects that I attended and that I participated in throughout last years were implemented in the Karazin University. I will try to deliver presentation to outline them briefly. Mediation in Ukraine exists for over 30 years, and with each year we have more attention from the legal community, from the academia, about it as an effective way to resolve conflicts. So, Karazin University has been active in research and projects in mediation and peace building. As back as in 2013, the university participated in the Tempus project that you can see right now on the screen, and as the deliverables at the legal university are based on these results, we created the first program on the alternative dispute resolution settlements as a predecessor of one of the mediation programs. A little bit later, within Erasmus Plus, there was a project mediation, transformation, and practices that was mentioned and covered quite in detail by Olga Karpova from the Krok University, STEP University. And here we took part in trainings, and within the project we implemented the master program mediation based on the management program, and altogether the university, together with partners from Azerbaijan, Georgia, Ukraine, developed the activities in this regard. Still, some unpleasant things happen. Just give me a moment. I will fix my presentation. I am sorry for the technical inconveniences and for the delay.
Чомусь збилася презентація. Зараз я її. Спробую іншому. Вибачте,
Пані
будь
Ольго,
ласка,
ми бачили
чомусь злітає.
презентацію, все було добре.
So the presentation, it was good. You can launch it again, or yes, just give me a second. It was good, we saw it.
Так. Так, все.
Almost there.
Ну і, власне, в рамках
And
цієї
within
програми
this
ми
program,
сподівалися
we
налагодити
hoped
постійні
to
ensure
ensure constant communication and contacts with Azerbaijan, Georgia, Ukraine, and to share the value of mediation in the society. At the same time, in line with this project, and after the project was finalized, the professors at the university were able to have a more active involvement. In particular, Professor Horoshenko became the expert of the project Prava Justice, and our contribution to that is gap analysis of mediation in Ukraine and the guiding principles in the implementation of competencies in mediation. I'm still having a problem here.
Пані Олена, я пропоную просто
Dear
продовжити
Elena, you
без
can just
презентації.
continue without presentations, and the presentation will be attached to the materials that all the speakers, because we have so many speakers. We want to hear from students and from everyone. Each and every minute counts. I don't take the floor, and Ruslan doesn't take the floor, so that everybody can participate. So after this program, we developed and launched the practical certification program, mediation skills in social sphere and in the healthcare. We implemented it in 2021-2023 with the support of a GIZ project. And in 2021-2022, we were thinking that this project will be under threat because of the war, but we started working online, and from the March of 2022, the programs got good reviews from the healthcare and social sector, the target audience. And based on the experience that we received in the implementation of this project, we had guidelines for the social sector and for the healthcare, which was quite interesting and useful in terms of the practical approach here, practical materials. In 2024, the experts from our university, together with mediation practitioners, started working on implementing the pilot trauma-oriented approach to mental health, psychological state, and mediation within UN Children's Fund, the UNICEF, and Kharkiv Regional Military Administration. We are strengthening mediation in the communities in the Kharkiv region. Now we are implementing it quite efficiently. We have the first group that is actively working right now. Within this project, we intend to have online and offline events, and we hope that everything will work nicely. Also, we actively cooperate within Erasmus Plus, the reform of the syllabus to promote peace in Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. Now we also have a project in virtual exchanges among youth and students. It's the art of negotiations and mediation. The main partner here is the Dutch Business Academy and the STEP University, Ukrainian Association of Youth Councils, Mykola Romerio University, also Batuma University named after Shota Rustaveli, etc. We give the students and youth access to the new level of inclusive education by having this virtual exchanges concerning conciliation and mediation. To finalize, we are getting ready to have a big international conference, Peace Education Hub was created based on the Karazhan University, and in 2025, in February, in Innsbruck, we plan to have Aurora International Peace Conference. That's briefly it from my part. Thank you for your attention. I'm sorry for some technical inconvenience that for some reason happened today.
Не хвилюйтесь,
Буває.
все буває.
No
Ми знаємо,
worries,
що
it
все буває,
happens.
світло можуть вимкнути.
We know everything
Рано
can
може
happen.
бути
There
все,
can be a
закринеться,
power
зараз не
cut. There
передбачено,
can
все
be
на
air raid
світі.
alert.
Головне, щоб
It's
всі були
just
живі,
so
здорові.
small things.
А
The
все
most
інше,
important thing
все-
is
все
that
зайве
everyone is
можна
alive and healthy, and the rest can be
Дякую вам.
Дякую за те, що ви
lived
теж
through. Thank
попри
you
всі ці виклики
also for
все ж
the
таки
fact that
вклалися
despite all those
в
challenges, you
Дякую вам, що приєдналися до
spoke
нас
within
сьогодні.
the timing, and thank you for joining us
Пані
today.
Руслана, вам передаю слово.
Dear Ruslana, the floor goes to you. Yes, thank you, Louise, and thank you for the invitation for the future conference. I saw the agenda, it's very interesting. Dear colleagues, now we go to the first panel finally. And next, we'll not make this mistake. We give you 5-6 minutes per person. We'll use some punitive measures and forceful measures. I understand that everyone wants to take the floor. The topics are very interesting, but also let's take care about our joint interests and needs. Now the floor goes to Christina Grecka, who will work in this room as a mediator, and Lilia Melchiv that will work online. Thank you, dear Ruslana. Good day, dear participants of this scientific and practical conference, Mediation Universities 1.0. Welcome to dear organizers and participants and speakers, to everyone who is present here in the Chernivtsi National University named after Fedькович, and for all the online participants. I'm also grateful for the chance to moderate this panel discussion together with Lilia Omelicheva. Today we will be speaking about very important and multifaceted elements as mediation is a disciplinary approach in training the client-oriented professionals of the future. The first speaker is online. That is why I give the floor to Lilia. Hello, dear colleagues. I give the floor to Ahmad Hussein, the senior researcher at the Singapore Mediation Center, independent international arbiter and accredited mediator from the United Arab Emirates, who will be speaking about mediation and mediation competencies as an integral part of legal education. The floor is yours, dear Ahmad.
Thank you for this invitation. It's my pleasure to be here. I know we have only 7 minutes, so I will stick with these minutes. And before I start, I would like to really thank Louisa and the entire team members of Ukrainian Academy of Mediation and the organizer of this conference. This is really an inspirational platform for the students, for the practitioners, for the speakers. And I can imagine the efforts exerted to have this conference. Today, I'm going to speak about a timely topic, not only fundamental, but essential now, which is mediation and mediation competencies in the legal profession. I'm sure that all of us now, every day, we come across more mediation clinics, more mediation competitions, more mediation ambassadors. And the world now, not only to be an arbitration-friendly jurisdiction, but how to be a mediation-friendly jurisdiction, which is very important. And the ecosystem for that will be through the students and the education. I'm going to cover 4 topics, which is the first one, the increasing role of mediation in legal profession. It is not only now for litigation. The second point, it will be about the skills. What are the skills tools important for the law students now? The third topic about the chances, the doors, the employability that now it's badly needed for those who are studying mediation to find their way in the other professions and other opportunities. Finally, the leadership and its importance in mediation competencies. Before proceeding further, I think we all agree that now the legal education is moving from traditional methods into a mediation. It has become a component, and I myself am grateful and I am honored to supervise some of the students in Singapore Management University on mediation, and they are doing fabulous work on empirical research about mediation. Regarding the increasing role of mediation, there is a global shift towards ADR now in terms of the competitiveness. And if we just visit the global reports about ease of doing business, about arbitration or ADR friendliness, we will find that mediation is there in terms of time, in terms of cost. Also, mediation has become on the front line because of the international recognition. Now, today, we have almost 57 countries joined Singapore Convention, and almost 14 or 13 countries ratified the convention, which means these are a believer in mediation for cross-border disputes. Also, regionally speaking, and being here in Middle East, and now I'm talking to you from Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, next door neighbor in Saudi Arabia, they have now mandatory mediation or mandatory commercial mediation, and this is open doors for the legal profession that they should be trained not only to be an excellent litigator, but also be ready to deal with such a mandatory mediation, and the same, I think, in UK and in other jurisdictions. The implications of law students now that these skills have become essential, it equips them to be better performers, better achievers, and in alignment with their clients. Just 2 weeks ago, I was lucky to finish 2 courses in Saudi Arabia for ambassadors of mediation. And I was so pleased at the end of the course that some of them have decided to invest more in mediation and to go further in this profession, which is really important. Also, there is an evolving roles of lawyers. Some of the law firms now established an independent section for ADR because they realize that this section will be like a catalyst. It will create values, create additional roles, and it will empower their lawyers for the legal professions. And this should be reflected in the way from moving from adversarial approach into a better collaborative approach. The second topic is about the legal training, which I'm sure you every day now from AAA, from CEDAR, from SIMC, from other providers of training worldwide, there is a focus now on active listening, on empathy, on emotional intelligence, on communications. And if empirically those skills made the performance of lawyers much better than if they are only focused on the traditional approach. Also, with active listening and emotional intelligence and the strategic neutrality, that repositioning the lawyers in a better position, and also it is badly needed now for them in their work placement. Also, the advocacy now is not only about the adversarial, but rather about how to create value and how to convince your lawyers and how to think on a win-win situations. The third point is about the opening chances. Now, with the World Bank, with the UNDP, with the CLDB, and other European entities, they need qualified students or legal professions who are really well-versed in ADR, in go-between, in gap filler, in peace builders. This is a new role, especially with the problematic situations worldwide. This profession has become in need now to be a builder and a peacekeeper in the complexity of our world now. These are just examples of the career paths in the cross-border demand and collaborative work and expanding the horizons. I think the last point related to the leadership. This morning, when I start thinking about the mediation world, I found that for education, it can be it is motivating new legal professions. The E for efficient dispute resolution, the D, door for better opportunities, the I for inspirational platform for solutions, the A for approach for BATNA and Zuba, the T for time optimization, the I for impartiality and neutrality, the O, it is online option, and the N, it's a new law come. I stick with these words, and I would love to have more time, but I really respect the other time allocated for our esteemed colleagues, and it is a great pleasure to be with you today, and looking forward to send this presentation and to join you for the remaining. It's almost 7 minutes, and I'm done with my presentation. Many thanks. Thank you.
Дуже дякуємо пану Емаду Хусейну за те, що поділилися
Thank you
своїм
very much
досвідом.
to Ahmad Hussein for sharing his experience, and Ms. Dana Rone. She's a doctoral degree in law from Latvia. The name of the speech is Skills of Mediation as Impartial Part of Success in Business.
Thank you so much for giving the floor to me. So I will share the screen to show the presentation. Before I start, many thanks to the conference organizers. I hope you see the screen. Do you? I'm not sure if the screen visible. Could you please let me know?
It's not visible yet.
Not visible. So let's see. Let's see what I can do. Sorry.
We can share.
That would be great. Thank you so much. Yeah. Wonderful. So I'll go slide by slide, and I will see on my screen my presentation, and I would be happy if you could go on. And before I start, many thanks to the conference organizers for impressive invited speakers list and really impressive topics to be reviewed in today's conference. So my topic is the business success in mediation, and from the outset it looks that everything is already said about mediation and business success, but I will just make my most essential points because in the latest month I have been involved in quite a number of business mediations, so therefore I will just remind to all of us why business goes hand in hand with this dispute resolution method of mediation. So I proceed to the slide number 2. So we all know that the most important types of business resources are financial, material, human, and intellectual. And in all those cases, when the business companies are in disputes, let's be honest, this is quite a waste and expenditures of all of these resources. For to litigate in either the state court or in arbitration, the companies are dedicating their finances and also human resources and like mental capacity of the companies to go through the litigious process, which is both long time and resource consuming and also quite unpredictable. We all know that the law stays mostly unchanged, but the case law elaborates and therefore the decisions are unpredictable. So therefore, for those merchants, for those companies who know that litigious process is like that, they're more motivated to go for mediation. Those companies who, on contrary, are the first-time litigators, they are still naive at their approach, and they hope that the court decision is coming soon and it will not take their resources so much. But in the end, after 2-3 years, when the litigation process is over, they are coming to the conclusion that indeed the disputes are taking all of those resources. And I proceed to the slide number 3. Interesting that the more business develops, then there are more disputes. We could think that maybe the more experienced companies, the more experienced business have less disputes, but no, the growth of business also means growth of the disputes. And they are outer and also inner disputes with the business partners, with outside companies and entities, and also inside of the company, because the growing of business means also the growing of staff, of employees, of supportive workforce, and therefore these disputes or daily situations are also more subject to the possible disputes. So therefore, the companies are considering more and more to contract close standing mediator who could be of help in these dispute situations, and not to allow going all the disputable situations to the court, because it is excessive and unwanted way of spending the resources. And with that, I proceed to the slide number 4. Talking about the mediation benefits, the best benefit probably which is connected with mediation is satisfaction with the outcome, satisfaction with the result. And especially business companies choose to go for mediation if they see that they can reach more in mediation than they can reach in court. We know that when we formulate claims to the court, they should be of legal nature, and this is quite strict and unflexible. And in mediation, the companies can reach more flexible, more tailor-made solutions, which is what the companies want. Also, in courts, we may not involve third parties at the moment when we want to conclude even amicable agreement. In the mediation, we can add as many participants in the final amicable agreement as necessary. So therefore, this flexibility is what is really like wanted for the companies. Another aspect is that the mediation is saving these workforce resources because to employ the in-house lawyer or to send to the court also the finance persons who are commenting on claims for financial aspects is really taking away the workforce for the company's primary business. And another aspect that mediation is educational, for instance, especially when there are disputes in the company between companies' employees who are in conflict, who are very valuable company employees, and the company needs both or all of them, but they are in conflict, then mediation is exactly the method which is helping to train them new skills and new communication standards. So this is quite a transformative mediation for the companies. And with that, I go to the slide number 5. Stereotypical, we think about mediator as a person who is very calm and nice of the nature, and maybe with a lower voice and not showing a strong characteristical skills. But in the recent timing, we see that more and more companies choose a mediator with a stronger personality. Why? Because, well, in comparison with the family disputes, where we really need a mediator as a personality who is calming down the parties, in business mediation, many times the companies are looking forward to the mediator with a person with a stronger opinion. And I do know that it goes in contrary to the principle of neutrality and objectivity of the mediator. Still, at many times, the companies are appreciating a stronger approach and stronger attitude of the mediator. So therefore, let's stay open to the candidate mediators who we are choosing exactly for the business disputes. Sure, there is no one recipe for the all cases, but if the dispute is of the higher emotions and higher increased escalation situations, then this strong characteristic of the mediator is quite appealing and quite welcome. With that, I go to the slide number 6. We do know that timing matters. Still, at many times in business disputes, we do see that the mediation is especially successful when the companies have already started litigation and with the help of the court gathered almost 80% of the possible evidence for the dispute and then to engage in mediation. So therefore, if we choose mediation always and uncritically just before court sessions, then we lack the evidence. But more and more we see situations that the companies engage in litigation, then stop it and then go for mediation, because then this gives the possibility to see approximately 80% of the evidence, which helps to play with open cards and helps to understand what are the trustful and not trustful evidence materials. With that, I go to slide number 7. From all the lists which we can see on the screen, I could emphasize the patience. The patience is the key of the mediator, because even the mediation, it takes patience and time. And for those persons who are in dispute, they are many times losing the hope, and they think sometimes about the litigation process as a solution out of the dispute. But if we keep patiently going back and forth, even through the shuttle mediation, we can reach higher goals. So therefore, if the mediator has this patience, that's a great thing, and that's a great success also for the parties. With that, I go to the slide number 8, for the mediation strategies, I'm emphasizing here the number 1, reflective listening. Even though a couple of slides before I emphasized the importance of strong character of the mediator, also the strong mediator character has ability to show this reflective listening. If the parties are talking one over other and showing just their talking skills, it leads nowhere. It leads to new disputes. It leads to increasing and escalation of the existing dispute. Instead, first step is to listen, to understand, to interpret what has been said, and only then to come back with a counter offer, with a counter opinion. So these listening skills is what should be taught to the mediators, and in fact also to the company members who are involved in dispute settlement. With that, I go to the slide number 9. And here, from the list of success, what makes mediation business like possible and successful, I'm concentrating on respect, which is the number 3 point. So respect to the opponent in words, in deeds, in email correspondence can reach higher goals than just pure aggression. And here we, as a lawyer, we should step back from what has been taught in the law faculty, that we should be, if not aggressive, then assertive and moving our point to the success. But this respect, the courtesy, the ability to talk to the opponent, even through the mediation or even in the court, is a long-lasting and more successful method than all the others. So this is what should be remembered. And with that, I go to this slide number 10 about learning the steps. So when we do go for the mediation in business cases, we do a good planning, and this is a work which we are doing before we start the process. We think about possible topics to be discussed and think always about the plan B and plan C. So to open a broader perspective for the negotiations, for the talks. The mediator does the planning, but actually the planning is also the homework for the companies themselves. So they have a list of topics which they want to discuss, and this never is the same as the documents submitted to the court. This is always something else, more broad, more open. And please do pay attention also to the point number 5 about caucuses, so individual sessions, separate sessions. Many times in the business mediation, I see that parties are not open to share to one to another secret information. They are more comfortable of sharing information to the mediator. And also this decreases the risk of disclosing the secret information to the opponent, because, well, we can never trust how the opponent misuses the shared information. Of course, there is a confidentiality principle, but let's be honest, the confidentiality principle of mediation vaguely and not very well works in the horizontal relationship between the parties. Yes, the mediator is obliged to keep confidentiality, but the parties can misuse that. So therefore, the shuttle diplomacy in the caucuses session is of the better model. And slide number 11, here we go, that the mediator also can give some help. Well, sorry, the parties can help the mediator to to work with the shuttle mediation and to give to opponent some ideas of how the dispute could be resolved. So therefore, if you are in mediation as a business company, then be active. Say to the mediator how you see the conflict to be resolved, and then the mediator will do the work and try to further forward this information to the opponent. And yeah, with that, we can probably help to resolve the business disputes. That was my very quick presentation on the success of business mediation, and thank you for helping me with slides. And I just want to emphasize that business mediation gets more and more popular in Latvia, and although the statistical data maybe does not show that because the merchants are not very happy to share their even good practice, still, we, the mediators, see that we are having more and more requests from the companies to resolve inner and outside disputes for them. Thank you so much.
Дякуємо, пані Дана, за вашу чудову таку змістовну доповідь. І я передаю слово зараз
For your speech, and I'm passing over the word, the microphone to Christina, so that she could introduce the following speakers online. You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Lila. So, with us, Ms. Olga Titun is present. She's the founder and owner of TOV Commercial Group, who has prepared, in cooperation with Pania Hita Portnitska, a certified family mediator and consultant on issues of negotiations. She's an attorney, a lawyer, resigned mediational competences and implementation in the daily use of a lawyer. Kindly asking you to follow the timing, please. We're happy to be here. Dear colleagues, we're happy to see. It's my honor to be here and present at the conference.
It's an honor to be here. I hope that now we'll see the presentation on the screen. Who are we? We are the representatives of an undertaking a commercial sector business that provides business as a service to people, to business, etc. And that's very important that when we present our company, we use mediation competencies because we understand that the demand for mediation needs to be increased. We provide negotiation, mediation services, transformation of the conflict, legal support, and psychological support. And that's why we also have specialists to provide such comprehensive services to our consumers. We have been working already for 4 years. That is my colleague Vita, who I will give the floor right now, because since I have more practices as a mediator, Vita is a lawyer that uses legal competencies. She serves as a mediator, but she has legal competencies. We're here today to tell you about using competencies, mediation competencies in legal sphere. I like to give the overview. I try to look into the etymology of the words lawyer and the mediator. A lawyer is a practicing legal professional. Mediator is an intermediary. When I looked into the synonyms, I didn't find any synonyms for mediator, but I found a synonym for lawyer, that is justice. Justice is a global value, but I guess that mediators and lawyers are the professionals that support their clients and they lead them to justice. And mediator also looks into what that means, how each of our clients sees this justice, and we need to work with that. We need to work with this serious category of value. We build the trust of our clients by working with justice, and we understand that justice without peace is impossible. What is more important about trust? We say that mediator competencies covers work with relationship and work with trust. If we look into that as sociological and psychological category, it's very important to understand that it includes Such elements as honesty, well-wishing, and competency. And our research shows that clients are unlikely to forgive our lack of competence rather than not forgiving us our dishonesty or the lack of well-wishing. Now I'll give the floor to my colleague. Good day. Thank you so much for giving me the floor at this wonderful event that we have today. I am a retired judge for 20 years. I have been working on settling conflicts through judicial procedures, through law. But after finalizing my career as a judge, I continued working with conflicts, and I'm working now by using mediation competencies that I gained while I was studying basic mediator skills. What are the mediation competencies? Mediation competencies are a set of knowledge that gives a mediator an opportunity to resolve conflicts that are based on the principles of mediation. That is the free will of the parties, confidentiality, and voluntary nature. How do mediation competencies work in the work of a lawyer? First of all, it's conflictology, element of conflictology. It is basic knowledge regarding conflicts. Because when a person goes to a lawyer needs to figure out all the parties to the conflict, who is participant of the conflict, what are their relations, because as a judge, one of the grounds for quashing the decision of a judge is the fact that not all parties to the conflict were involved in the conflict resolution procedure. Therefore, information about the conflict, knowing about the conflict is very important. But in order to figure out the factual circumstances of a case, the facts of a conflict, we need to have communication skills. What are those communication skills? Active listening, work with emotions, rephrasing and reformulating, nonverbal communication, the unbiased nature of the messages, and rapport. Why do we need that? In order to resolve a dispute, we need to determine the factual circumstances of the case and the legal relations that correspond to that. In order for that to happen, we need to first of all put aside emotions and to use the mediation competencies that helps us have layers of the facts, and here we have the layer of emotions. Sometimes it helps our client when those emotions subside. It helps the client to understand whether there is a conflict or whether it's his own perception of a situation. Procedural competency of a mediator. The procedural competency of a mediator is a competency to be and to act according to certain processes. We all understand that some aspects are governed by civil procedural legislation, and being able to transform those processes not only in court but in other administrative procedures, and to do them according to the procedural requirements assures the client that we go step by step towards the settlement of this conflict. It is very important to maintain confidentiality because sometimes the conflicts arise and people go and use the mediation to keep it private, to keep it confidential. Therefore, confidentiality is of paramount importance for the lawyers and need to be implemented into the educational programs for the legal professionals. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Olga and Vita, for very practical insights and skills of managing conflicts. Now we give the floor to our next speaker, Alla Chaika, who is a lead professional of the Center of the Mediation Intermediary work on using mediation in the sphere of IP. The floor is yours. I'd like to say that it's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank the organizers and the moderators and everyone who is present here. I'd like to discuss some experience of the IP mediation from IP office. So, IP mediation is a type of mediation related to dealing with IP disputes. We speak of disputes related to different objects of IP law. It's the trademarks, patents, the copyright, that is the spectrum of disputes in IP mediation are quite huge. If we have some elements of IP mediation and IP mediators, I highlighted two main points. It's the emotional nature, because quite often, as far as copyright is concerned, one of the persons that is a creator has a certain psychological connection when a person sees that the object of intellectual property is kind of mirroring of his own identity. It's one of the elements, but it doesn't have to do with all the disputes in this nature. And the second element is a certain legislative framework, but here we need to say that we're speaking about some lack of IP law. That is, IP mediator doesn't have to be very well aware of all the elements of IP law, all the technicalities, but rather should have the general understanding of the principles of the legal framework in the area of IP law, and to be able to understand the value of a given object of IP law. I also analyzed certain master programs that are available abroad. Certain educational programs on mediation or IP that include IP mediation. After analyzing them, I have reached the same conclusion. The first London program includes a discipline like copyright disputes that includes a detailed analysis of the nature of the disputes and different ways of resolving them through alternative measures. Another one in Valencia has to do with the following structure, that around 70% of the education is dedicated to IP and 70% to mediation. Next, coming back to the center of the mediation and intermediation that exists for over a year, and over that time, our main tasks were to promote mediation and facilitate mediation. Right now, we have one case. Unfortunately, I cannot provide more detailed information about this case, but I hope that very soon you'll have it available publicly. What other challenges did we face when dealing with this issue? Is some opposition from the lawyers and reluctance from the lawyers. For example, we had consent of one party to have mediation, consent from another party, but before the next stage, before the information and assessment meeting, parties unfortunately refused, as we found out that the lawyer of one of the company refused to conduct this procedure. So we see that we don't only have to work with the business, but with the lawyers, with the attorneys. And we need to explain that mediation is not their rival in the market. Also, we need to show that Mediation was a big element of the roundtable events. We always had discussion clubs and a lot of research projects that I will cover in more detail. I will speak more about IP mediation, about work with international organizations, and with the World Intellectual Property Organization and other universities. Right now, in order to implement these tasks and other tasks with the IP Office resolutions, we have approved 3 main documents as the information about the register of mediators in IP area, and it contains key information on who can be a mediator in the register, what documents need to be submitted, and how this is administered and supported. Also, it's the rules for mediating IP cases. So this document covers key elements of how the procedure is conducted, in what timeline, and how the mediator is chosen, and other elements. And the Code of Professional Ethics that has key information about the ethical standards of IP mediators. It's all on my part. I see that I'm running out of time. This slide shows the register of IP mediators. Also, we had an awareness raising video that shows how mediation happens. It's available on YouTube, and the link will be available. I'll finalize here. Here you can see our contacts. It's a pleasure for us to cooperate with any of you and have a moment in any procedures. Thank you, dear Allah, for sharing the experience of the work of mediation and intermediaries of IP Office. Thank you for sharing the contact details. And now I give the floor to moderate. Lilia Amelicheva now will moderate. We now will hear from Frank Aikman, the Council on Dispute Settlement and accredited mediator and co-organizer of the fund. We will be speaking on the importance of self-reflection in mediation. Dear Frank, the floor is yours.
Good morning, all. Hello from a very grey and cold London. It's a real pleasure to be here, and thank you for the time you've given me. I know I've got 7 minutes, so I'm going to do my best to stick to it. So just quickly about me. So my name's Frank, and I work at CEDA, so the Centre for Effective Dispute Resolution. I work as the foundation coordinator, but also as a dispute resolution advisor. Before I came to CEDA, I did a master's in mediation and conflict resolution at the University of Strathclyde. And as part of my degree, I did a dissertation titled "What We Can Learn About Mediators and Mediation from the Content Data Analysis of Mediator Reflection Forms." So part of the reason that I was very interested in mediation was this idea of people resolving conflict constructively rather than through litigation. But one of the things that I quickly identified was that mediation is a very isolated field. As mediators, you often act alone. You're frequently bound by very strict rules of confidentiality. And an issue that arises from this is it stops us from being able to develop the field and to develop your own practice, because the only people who see you in practice, in effect, are the parties themselves. And it can often be quite difficult to get feedback from them because for them, it might have been the first time that they are in a mediation. And so they don't know what good mediation practice is. And so one of the tools that's frequently promoted within mediation is this self-reflection and self-reflective practice. So it was a key interest of mine, and I thought it was an interesting area to delve into for my dissertation. So there's a bit of a famous quote that goes around mediation conferences, and I heard it first from the mediator Michael Lang. It's a bit of a cheeky quote, but it goes like, "Mediation is a lot like sex. It's done in private, and we don't often talk about it." I thought it would be a funny quote to start my dissertation with, but I really regretted it when my grandmother asked to read my dissertation. So it was a bit of a regret that I used that as my opening quote, but I think it's very reflective of the work. So at the University of Strathclyde, one of the things that we did there was promote the use of self-reflection forms. And so I did a deep dive into the literary work based around self-reflection. And so looking at some of the educational writing on it, and why we use it as a tool of learning within the mediation field. And so I think it's quite helpful to first define what self-reflection is. And for that, I would go to David Bood, who was a professor, and he described self-reflection as an important human activity in which people recapture their experience, think about it, mull it over, and evaluate it. It may take place in isolation or in association with others. And that second bit of the definition is quite important, and I'll come back to it later. So that taking place in isolation or in association with others. And then looking further at the literary work around reflection and reflective practitioner, a prominent professor in that area called Donald Schoon, he wrote a very influential book called The Reflective Practitioner, and I would recommend reading it. It's very good if you're interested in the area of self-reflection and self-development. It's a key area, and he talks about two forms of self-reflection. He calls one reflection in action, and the second one reflection on action. So reflection in action is when we think about doing something while doing it. So this is the act of thinking about doing while doing a form of work, and this frequently happens in mediation. When we're actively listening to something, we suddenly hear something and then reflect on what we have heard and then make a decision. He uses quite an interesting example of professionals that do this are improvisational jazz musicians. So an improvisational jazz musicians are musicians who don't play sort of on a music sheet, but rather listen to each other while they're playing, and then from what they hear, decide how to move the song forward. And I think that's a fairly similar approach that mediators take. While we have a structure in terms of how we structure the mediation, so a beginning session, an exploration phase, a bargaining phase, and then a conclusion phase, in between that, it's frequently unknown where the parties will take the mediation. And so the mediator, like a jazz musician, is constantly reflecting in action. So constantly reflecting during the mediation, hearing things, and then deciding where to take the mediation best. What's the best way of resolving this problem? So that's one form of reflection that we do subconsciously, perhaps. And the subsequent one is reflecting on action. And he encouraged lawyers, and I would argue now that mediators should also do this, is a form of reflection that occurs after the action. And so allows the professionals to analyze the decisions made in action. So especially during fast moving episodes like a mediation where a lot of things are being said, you might be able to reflect in action and make a quick decision. But it's often good to take a step back once the mediation has happened and to break it down. So have a look at what was said, what were key moments that you thought during the mediation were influential to it. And how can you adapt your practice to best fit it? And this is a key practice area that I think a lot of mediators should do more of. And I think most mediators are aware of this. Often after a mediation, mediators are quite tired. It's a very intensive process, and so the last thing that you want to do after a mediation is straight away start thinking about the mediation and what went well and what didn't go wrong. But what I found during my dissertation research and during my work was that it has enormous benefits for mediators as a tool of learning. Simply because of this isolation, this little bubble that we're in as mediators, there's very few opportunities to learn. And it is a key area of learning and development. And the research shows that as well, that mediators often feel a lot more confident in their work once they're able to reflect. There's just one important point that I want to make, and that was, as we heard in the definition, that reflection can happen in isolation, but it can also happen together as a group. And for mediators, it's very important that it happens as a group, that you do it within a group as well, because otherwise you have your biases that influence your thinking. So I would encourage mediators to form small groups and to self-reflect together. So do self-reflection alone, and then within a group where you can best do. I see that my time's coming up, so I'm just gonna end it there. If there's any questions, then please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Велике дякуємо за розуміння, за дуже
Huge
цікаву
thanks for understanding and for a very interesting topic. For mental health of a mediator is as valuable as the health of clients. I am giving the floor for the moderation to Christina. Thank you. Dear colleagues, I am welcoming Tetiana Stepanova.
Дякую. Дякую. Чи мене чутно? Сподіваюся,
Do you hear me? I hope. Yes, Tetiana, yes, you're welcome. Tetiana Stepanova, PhD, Legal Department Chair, Constitutional Law and Force, Legal University Odessa by Meshnikov. Temporal competence as the part of preparing legal students. Thank you. Today, by previous speakers, certain questions raised as for when it's necessary to master. Who has to master? There's no question here. No, the competences have to be formed, and not only to the lawyers, but also to psychologists and other adjacent jobs, and sociologists and politologists, etc. So definitely, mastering mediational techniques and skills not only helps in the job, but also in life. But having said that, as I said in my topic, it's very important to identify this temporary indicator with a moment when you could start, when the person is ready for mastering those mediational competences. Some researchers, as it turned out to be that there has been some discussion as for this point in our university, some researchers say that such competences should be formed even beginning from first year at university. For example, I am the ardent advocate of this position from the first year at university, or maybe even earlier, back at school, secondary school, because school mediation can be carried out by their peers. And in this case, even minor or underage child have gone through the courses of mediation. They can use the skills and knowledge in their daily life and in the process of help of conflict resolution with peers. At the same time, other researchers say that forming mediational competences should be postponed until the senior years, up until bachelor degree or even master's degree level. And we have heard that several schools that prepare master's programs as for mediation and dialogue competences, etc. Why? As they fundamentally finding the alternative ways. Their research in the civil court, commercial court, in the third, fourth year of the bachelor degree. In the course of mediation has to be, in their opinion, only as a summarizing course that can be mastered by the person who has received some basic knowledge on different branches of procedural law. For example, in criminal processes, also in the civil and commercial courts, and also tertiary courts and international arbitrages and administrative courts, possibilities of using mediational technique as for sorting out or resolving conflicts involving the judges. By doing so discretionally, there was a question as for temporary frameworks of the moment when the lawyer is able, during the process of education, to form their mediational competences. In our opinion, this is the second group who believe that it's impossible to master, to carry out only. You just can't carry until de facto the program of bachelor degree only in the master's degree, or maybe at the very end of bachelor's degree. They have a misconception of the idea of mediation. They probably identified with alternative ways of conflict resolution as strict tertiary court and arbitrages. So these differences are quite complicated and very over-regulated forms as alternative ways of resolution. They connect with procedures similar to the courtroom hearings ones, procedures of functioning of order, resolution, and it's necessary to be studied really in the courses of the courts. Mediation is more about negotiation. It's more simple way and implementation, and also the skills of implementing can be used by the students in their personal life, not only at work, but also in their personal life, but in their family as well, with their friends, with their colleagues, with children, with their parents, etc. That's why when I don't, so that's why I believe that the mediation does have some special features similar to reconciliation on negotiations rather than tertiary courts, etc. Because the mediation is not connected by the rigid forms such as a courtroom hearing, which is clearly distributed by the law. Yes, mediation does have the law regulations, the law on mediation that has laid out key fundamentals as for running the mediational procedures. However, mostly the attention is paid to the principles, different mediational agreements at the beginning, at the end of the forming of mediational results, etc. And the procedure itself is not over-regulated. That's why it's closer to negotiation. Unlike from tertiary courts and arbitration, which are overburdened, and mediational and negotiations are and have to be mastered as soon as possible and implemented in life because it will decrease the number of conflicts in the families, in the teams, in the jobs, in the university, while communicating with friends, with family members, with children. It's a rightful and good skill that regulate us to the European values that cannot be that cannot depend on the higher education and certificates. If we're speaking about bachelor degree and then only in the master's degree we can master those skills. As for me, this position doesn't have to be an overwhelming one for the educational establishment, and while they're forming their individual trajectory, that intertwine, in my opinion, a very important competence of mediational competence. Take into consideration all the above mentioned, I think it will be incorrect for all generalized ways of solving resolution. While preparing the legal students, mediational competences should actually start from the fundamental ways of, oh, she is bombarding with terms too fast, sorry. On the other hand, for the legal students, the knowledge of the alternative ways, we know that in the standards of the higher education, particularly for the master's degree students, we've got they laid out all the alternative ways of how to resolve conflicts, since there's a definitely very high level of and master and also be able to use them. That's why definitely while building up the legal student, like comprehensive one that is able to provide the spectrum of all the alternative ways of alternative conflict resolution to their clients, it's definitely they have to consider definitely competence as mastering the skills of using all the alternative ways. But as for mediation, in my opinion, it has to be done as early during the bachelor's program. I don't think it will be correct to say it will be piling up, but okay, not piling up, but maybe adding the competencies to other alternative ways of conflict resolution. So these skills that have been already formed in the frameworks of the courses of the basis of fundamentals of mediation. Thank you for your attention.
Бачу, що ви в онлайні. Добре.
Thank you very much. I see that you're online, and I would like to invite to welcome our next honorable teacher, Tatiana Vodopyan. She's the water reserves PhD, mastering the mediational competences by the legal student as the catalyst of the changes of the individual. Thank you. Thank you very much.
колеги, за
Thank you, my dear
організацію цієї
colleagues,
чудової
for organizing
конференції.
this wonderful conference,
Те, що незважаючи на ті
for despite the
які переживають
condition
українці, ми все ж
that
таки
Ukrainians
продовжуємо
are
рухатися
going
вперед і
through.
обговорювати
We're
такі
still
важливі
moving
речі.
forward and we're
Отже,
talking about such
я
important things.
викладаю
I teach
дисципліну, що
this
стосується
discipline,
медіації в
which
університеті, в
concerns
магістерській
mediation
програмі.
in
Також я
the
є
university for
кандидатом,
master's program. Also, I
тренером
teach. I'm also the trainer of mediational
медіаційної
programs,
медіатором, тому можу
certified
порівнювати
trainer.
свій
So I can
досвід
compare my own
щодо
experience
викладання медіації,
as
щодо
for
тих змін, які
teaching
відбуваються
mediation and as for
з нашими
changes
студентами,
that are taking place
які
with
беруть
our
участь у цих
students
програмах,
who are
і
taking
як
part
це
in these
впливає
programs and
на
how it affects
розвиток медіації в тому
the
числі.
development of mediation,
Моя
among other
доповідь
things.
буде
My speech
розвиватись
will
багатьма
resonate
важливими речами,
with
важливими, які
other
вже були
things that are
сказані
important and that
попередніми
have been
спікерами.
spoken by the previous
І
speakers.
почну з
And
того, що
let me start
оскільки
with,
концентруюся на
since I'm
викладанні
concentrating on teaching
університетської
at the
дисципліни право, чому
university
правник
for
має
lawyers,
бути
why
освіченим в
lawyers,
медіації, чому
legal
він
students, why they have to be
запропонувати
knowledgeable
свої
about mediation? Why do they have to
за
offer
яких обставин
mediation to their clients?
в
Under what
реальності буде
conditions in
відбуватися те,
reality
що
will
як
be
я
taking
вже наводила
place?
приклад, адвокат не
As
буде
they give an
відмовляти
example,
своїм
their
клієнтам в медіації,
attorney,
навпаки, він
the
буде
lawyer will not be
давати
rejecting the
їм
client. Even to the contrary, they will be giving
інформацію
them
про
the
переваги, про
information
те,
about the
місце
advantages, about the
медіації як способу вирішення
worthfulness
спорів.
of using
І
mediation as
якщо ми
conflict
візьмемо
resolutions.
досвід
And if we take an
європейських
example
і
of
інших країн,
European and other
то
countries,
юристи,
so
консультуючи
legal
клієнта, вони
people, while
намагаються
consulting clients,
вирішувати
they're trying
спори
to
без
resolve the conflicts
застосування
without using
звернення до суду. Тобто звернення до
addressing
суду
to
це вже
court,
як остання
because
інстанція.
addressing the court is the
І
last
використовують
instance,
усі можливі
is the
способи для того, щоб
last
вирішити
resort,
спір
and using any
переговорів,
opportunities by means
арбітражу,
of
медіації,
negotiations,
тобто
arbitration,
використовувати
mediation,
способи,
and
які
any other
доцільні в тих чи
alternative
інших
ways
ситуаціях.
that are
І для того, щоб наші
good in other
юристи
situations.
також
And for our lawyers
підходили до консультування
to
клієнтів
approach
з
the
таким
consultancy of the
підходом,
clients in this
вони
approach,
повинні розуміти,
they
що
have
таке
to understand
медіація,
what
коли вона
mediation is,
доцільна, яка
when
її
it's
цінність.
worthy,
І
and
тільки через
what is
внутрішнє
its
це розуміння
value.
ми
And through this
можемо
internal understanding,
надати
can we
клієнту найкращу
provide the client
консультацію
with
як
the best
юриста. Якщо юрист сам
consultancy
не
as a
розуміє, що таке
lawyer.
медіація,
If
то як
if the lawyer doesn't
будь
understand
ласка,
what
дайте
mediation is,
якусь
how they
можливість
can
надати
offer that, how they can be talking about
Тому
this to the client.
саме
That's why
навчання
the training
цим дисциплінам
training of
в
these
університеті
subjects, of
правниковому
these
є
topics
якраз
in the
такий
universities,
спостережний
exactly
шлях,
this kind of bridge and this
заглибити
way,
серце
let me
правника,
say, to the heart of
зрозуміти
the legal student,
цінність
for them to
медіації,
understand the
доцільність. Ми
value
завжди
and
говоримо,
importance
що
of the
я
mediation.
що
We always
медіація
speak
це
about as
звичайно
mediation, that
вичерпний
mediation
вирок,
is not a
але
charming
є
pill.
багато випадків,
There are
коли
many cases
її
and
можна
instances when it
використовувати.
can be applied.
І ще одним із таких,
And
мабуть,
one more,
запобіжників
one of the
такого
deterrent factors
потужного розвитку медіації,
of
окрім
the
іншого,
powerful development of
про
mediation,
те,
among
що
other
населення
things,
не дуже
is the
знає,
population is not
інші речі, про
aware and more
інформується,
and
але все ж
more
недостатньо.
becoming aware of the mediation, but still not
Ця процедура.
not
Це і
significant.
про якесь внутрішнє таке
It's
наше
about the
ставлення
internal
з
attitude,
огляду на наш історичний досвід.
paying attention to
Які ми
our historical
пам'ятаємо про
experience
те,
that we
що
have been through,
цілі покоління
that
виховувалися
all the
на
generations
тому,
have been
що
raised
не
in the
вони
approach
відповідальні
that
за своє
it's not
життя,
them
вони мають
who are
виконувати
responsible for their
вказівки,
lives, but they have to
дані
perform
їм,
the
знають
indicators
правильний шлях
given by
обирати
somebody
дорогу.
else and the right
І
way
коли
shown
ми
by or indicated by somebody
перевертаємо
else.
цей
And if we
внутрішній
overturn this internal
такий посил,
this
інтенцію на те, що
message
я
or
є
intention
власником свого
that
життя,
I
я є
am
власником
the
свого
owner of
конфлікту,
my own
і
life,
я
of my own
обираю, як
conflict,
найкраще
and I choose
використовувати
how to
медіацію,
resolve
даю
it
їм
best
можливість,
and what mediation I have and what
власне,
opportunities I have,
прийняти своє
namely
рішення, те, яке
to
мені
accept
і
to take my
реалізувати
own
цю
decision which
власність на
fits me
практиці.
best and to use this
Я
ownership
сподіваюся,
over the
що ці
conflict.
молоді
I hope
покоління
that
правників,
these younger generations of the
які
legal students
виходять з лон університетів,
who
будуть
are
мати
graduating from the
досить
university,
такий
they will be feeling
підхід
this
більш
approach
відповідальний,
more
більш
responsible,
орієнтований
more
на
focused
ініціативність, на
on
відповідальність,
initiativeness,
і це сприятиме
responsibility,
розвитку
and this will
медіації
enhance
в
the
Україні в
development
тому
of
числі.
mediation
І коли
in
ми,
courage and
я
in
особисто
Ukraine, among
викладаю
other things.
дисципліну
And
з
when I personally
медіації,
ask, when I
я
teach the
намагаюся
subject on mediation, I do my best, as much as possible, within the frameworks of the university subject, because everyone who teaches at university, because we have got lectures, we've got practical practical classes, and you try to strike the balance between the formality and the drive from learning from the practical exercises while learning what mediation is. Respectively, I always pay attention to learning by the students of who they are, his approach to conflict resolution, how they come to the approach of their conflict resolutions in their own life. Why do they use these approaches for others and how it reflects? And also we pay attention to the emotional intellect, understanding emotions of the client. Even if you work as a lawyer, it's also very important. And we have sounded out the issues of section when every person and legal person understands why I do that and what is happening and what are the consequences. It's also important. It's an important thing to learn. So that's why we resolve these tasks from the position of, yeah, here in the situation, please offer to the client several solutions to the problem, describing advantages and disadvantages of all approaches. And by doing so, legal people are learning to analyze the situation as for the possibility to resolve it in different ways, not only focus on the legal agreement, legal litigation, what forms skills, forming of skills of through understanding of mediation and the advantages, possibilities of application. The lawyer can suggest, can offer to the client this way of sorting out the issue of conflict. Of course, in the point of the preparing the students at the universities, we don't prepare them. We need to have just a certified program, but to give them an understanding of the procedure and the values of. I hope we are pulling it off. And using this opportunity, maybe it will be one of the details. Maybe somebody has already spoken about it. We can create, if there's an opportunity to have some educational videos on mediation, because it's definitely better to see once rather than to hear 100 times about mediation, and definitely about the students which was too long. We have some videos, simulation videos, and they, from time to time, they lost it. In the frameworks of education, they were not too comfortable. So that would be a very good thing to have. That's why I hope that during the learning the discipline, the understanding of values of situation, understanding of oneself and the one's behavior in the conflict, of some internal reflections and changes, ideas, it gives an opportunity for the students and future legal professionals to understand what mediation is, to offer it in its job.
And to learn how to figure out and settle conflicts not only in professional life but also in their day-to-day life. Thank you so much, Tatiana. It was a very interesting presentation. Indeed, youth now have information through cross-senses, videos, pictures. You as a professor understand it very well. I give the floor to Nadia Bondarenko, the PhD in law, the associate professor of the Khmelnytsky University, who will be mediator, who will be speaking on the problems of shaping mediation skills in times of war. Good day, dear colleagues. It's a pleasure to be able to deliver a presentation here, given that a lot of questions were raised, in particular regarding teaching communication competencies. Within my presentation, I will be focusing on what needs to be highlighted more. I agree with colleagues who say that shaping communication competencies is a thing that needs to be undertaken from the very first year at the university. And at our university, named after Yuskov, these disciplines are taught at all levels, at the bachelor's, for the bachelor's, for the master's, and for PhD students. And the approaches to teaching them is based on the position and practical experience that mediation as the professional competence need to be taught at quite when the students are quite conscious when they get basic knowledge in bachelor's degree. Therefore, in the introduction to the ADRs, where they get a general idea about all available tools, including mediation. However, my presentation will be focused on the problems of shaping communication competencies that are present in our life because of the wartime context. Mediation in Ukraine has been practiced for over 30 years. Active implementation of the educational programs started somewhere from the 2012. We already have some experience of teaching the students that shows that the most effective elements for teaching the skills are such tools that would be based on interactive teaching technologies. We heard about mock sessions, brainstorming, neutral dialogue, active dialogue, etc. And universities and other education providers are using them in order to shape respective competences among the students. However, the war poses new challenges. We used to teach constructive dialogues and mentioned that one of the tasks of the mediator is to work with emotions, to calm down the parties, to create a neutral atmosphere. Today, our mediator needs to be able to work in an ongoing stress and in dangerous context. It means that it requires a new level of competencies, even far more enhanced. However, alongside new challenges and the need to form new elements of communication competencies, such as trauma-informed approach, diagnostics, self-assessment of your own psychological state and the state of your client during the ongoing stress, there are factors that reduce the efficiency of training that, among other things, have to do with the training of both students and training for the people teaching students. As we heard today, a lot of people had to go abroad and they cannot teach students offline. Quite often, students find themselves in difficult life situations that doesn't give them a chance to dedicate proper time to the ADRs. ADRs are very practical skills. You cannot teach them through videos or through a picture. You cannot shape a skill over the viewing of some video content. You need to invite a student to take part in a mock session for a person to work on that skill. And the best idea here is to work offline, or if it is done online, to make sure that the information and communication technologies are used to their best advantage. Unfortunately, now we have the situation that when the students reach the level of studying the discipline at the level of the masters, they have not yet the skills of working with interactive technologies. In other disciplines, a couple of first courses, they have various classical technologies for teaching, and when you invite a student to have, when the person needs to retake the class, you need to have at least 3 students to have it as a mock session, and they ask why. We can write some paper or some essay to cover up the classes that we missed. So here we speak about conceptual approach of the educational establishments for them to promote educational technologies, not only in ADRs, but in all disciplines. We must be able to focus on that interactive technologies as much as possible, that students need to work with these technologies. They need to understand why they need them. Yet another factor that decreases the efficiency of the communication skills and competencies is the lack of deep doctrinal research in this topic. It was mentioned today already. We have a lot of practical materials about mediation, about other ADRs, and we don't have any papers on the methodology of the research. We don't have the elements related to professional activity in legal field and professional competencies there. So we need to draw the attention of the academia to research in these areas. Another element is that we have lack of practice as an element of the educational process. On the one hand, the procedures, in particular mediation procedures, are confidential. The question is, who would agree that a student should be present at this session, or that a student conducts a real mediation session, not a mock session? In this regard, I would share the opinion I heard from my colleagues. Why don't we introduce the practice of having mediation based on the legal clinics in the higher education establishments? Legal clinics provide legal support. Some of them practice mediation, but only for the persons that, according to the law, have the right to a free legal aid. The ones that can get a mediation based on the free legal aid centers. In order to disseminate or have social promotions, we could suggest that if a person wishes, if the parties agree, and if they do not have the status that allows them to get a service, a legal service or a mediation service free of charge, they would agree that students try to mediate their conflict. In that case, we get a win-win situation. On the one hand, people who under different conditions could not have afforded the service. On the other hand, our students in the field in real time get the skill of managing the conflict, because mock session is good. However, mock session does not give the participants the full range of things that he or she would encounter in a real conflict, because when the students play a party, they are not that emotionally charged, and they do not provide the feedback that would teach the students that skills. It is clear that the war poses a lot of challenges for us. However, it also highlighted the need to increase the efficiency of shaping the communication competencies, not only for the conflict situations, but for any situations in the life. And in order to make this studying more efficient, we see a couple of ways here. Dear Nadia, your time is up. It's creating the trauma-informed educational setting and providing grants to scientific and research institutions that would be working on the doctrine, research of mediation competencies, creating the methodological complex with integration of all technologies, and disseminating the practice of having such mock sessions and real life situations based on the higher education establishments. Thank you so much, dear Nadia. We ask you to speak within the time allocated. Now we give the floor to Tatiana Navitska, who is a senior professor at the legal department of the National University of Kyiv Mahila Academy, a mediator, the president of NGO mediators, supervisors and coaches, and she will be speaking of the practical aspects of educational course, mediation and the settlement of conflicts regarding the improved skills of the law students. Good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here among this wonderful community. That is great that so many people are very deeply involved in the development of mediation in Ukraine. I will be speaking of practical aspects because we heard a lot regarding theoretical elements. I teach the course mediation and the course and the settlement of conflicts for the second year already. I work in the bachelor's programs, and I can say that today what I draw my attention to, how I encourage the students to be interested in a deeper delve into the topic of mediation. First and foremost, there are two aspects that I consider to be important from the standpoint of competencies of the students. That is integrated competency, that is how mediation can be integrated into what they learn as hard skills, how these hard skills can be supplemented by mediation. And the second element is social and psychological aspect, that is being able to understand human behaviors, their motivation, to get to improve the level of communication culture. So these aspects are important for me. I want to say that the first thing that is very important for the students is to tell them how mediation, how much it's widespread in the world. What is mediation in the context of the European Union? The directives of the European Parliament on the aspects of mediation, the requirements regarding the reform of courts, where it was also recommended to have more attention to pretrial settlement of disputes. The experience of different countries, the experience of developing mediation in Ukraine, the history, the background of the creation of the law on mediation in Ukraine, how the Association of Family Mediators was created, the Association of Legal Mediators. It's very important for the students to be able to know that they are related to a fast developing field, and there are a lot of questions to the students when they ask about the law on mediation. We had speakers that we heard from Luisa Ramanadze and Katarina Narovska, who are involved in who were involved in working on the law. And I think that in the future, our professionals need to know how it all started, how it all worked, because it's a very modern element, and we need to be able to speak of that. The second thing I draw attention to is the attitude towards the conflicts as such. We shaped this culture from the very beginning. And I always spoke a lot about the perception and the expectations on the part of the students, what they want to get for this throughout this course. And I understand that, first of all, we give this culture of how we deal with the conflict, because the lawyer mustn't say conflict is a bad thing. He must say, I know what to do with that. Therefore, the discussion with the students of how it should be done, for them not to be afraid of that, and for them to treat it as a part of their professional activity, if they know what to do with that. Therefore, there are many ways of settling conflicts. Mediation is one of them. And we give them an opportunity to be more confident about themselves. For them, it's also important to understand that conflict is just a daily part of work of any legal professional, wherever they find themselves later. A huge topic of the catalysts and the things that cause conflicts. People speak a lot about it, but I'd also like to speak about nonverbal conflictogenic elements. And here I provide Stewart and Heller practices, his 5 rings, where these nonverbal factors are interpreted in more detail. So students play with that, they have these mock sessions, and we have a lot of dialogue in this regard. Paraverbal manifestations, also it's very important to show that it's not yet within the social relations. And to give an example, when a student says that a student went to the court, and she was admonished for wearing a two-shirt skirt. They don't understand that it's a respect to the setting and to the institution like a court. It is the reputation of the court. So we pay a lot of attention to this too, and we have discussions for people to understand why the dress code exists and what a lawyer should look like, what a mediator should look like if they are indeed, and because they are indeed involved in the important settlement of disputes. Understanding of mediation, it's important, as my colleagues previously mentioned, that mock sessions are important. I engage all my students in mock sessions, student before the mock session and after the mock session. That is why it's very important to have some flexibility in the mediation, because the students have a lot of understanding, or they might be better adept at looking for compromise, because I think that we need to show them that we are looking for the interests. And then the Harvard model of the negotiations with the settling of the conflict through the interests, it's a basic skill for the students that I try to convey to them and teach them how to master it. Another important thing is understanding of the conflict that surrounds the situation, and mediability of the conflict and non-mediability of the conflict through the spiral model with the paradigm of thinking, and through the paradigm of thinking we see whether the person is able to horizontal communication and to the perception of another person, or whether the person is in a red or blue dynamics and the person is not yet ready. Maybe the person is looking for a manager, for some stronger authority, or something like that. Dear Tatiana, please remember the time. Yes, I see. So, we cover that also in the course of assertiveness. That is a part of modern understanding of how a person needs to show his assertiveness. Thank you so much, and sorry for delaying a little bit my speech. I give the floor to Christina to further moderate the event. I will give the floor to Yaroslava Andreeva, PhD in psychology, the head of the psychological department of the Chernivtsi National University, a mediator who will be speaking about the mediation competencies in the area of future psychologists. Please, the floor is yours.
A lot has been said about the importance of building competences in the mediation and education of different subjects. Let me say also, I'm a garant of program General Psychology that is implemented in Chernivtsi University on the Department of Pedagogics and Psychology and Social Work. When we develop and implement the social programs, we focus on the preparation of the psychologist to be as efficient as possible in the way that it's a specialist who gives professional services in different areas. And one of the spheres is the mediation area. In order to understand that our educational program forms these very competencies that we envisage, one of the most efficient ways is receiving the feedback from the students and graduates. The feedback may be in different forms, not only in the form of control events to evaluate. In our research, we have used methods as follows. These are
психологічний керований
psychological
асоціативний
guided
експеримент і
associative
опитування.
experiment and
Метою
questionnaire.
дослідження було
Purpose
оцінювання
of the research was
задоволеності
evaluating
освітніх
of
потреб
how
та
happy
якості
in terms of
формування
education
здібностей до
and building
медіації.
the ability
Методик я
mediate
вже вам назвала.
method
Вибірка це
to them.
32
The
студентів спеціальності
among
психології, третій рік
32
навчання
students
бакалаврського
third
рівня
in the third
вищої
year
освіти.
in bachelor
Дослідження
high
розпочати із аналізу
the
особливостей
research was
сприймання
started from the
студентами
peculiarities of
провідних
perception of
професійних
leading
категорій,
professional
таких як
categories such as
конфлікт, медіація і
conflict,
психолог.
mediation,
Ми
and
пропонували студентам
we
обирати
offered the
до цих
students to
категорій
choose
професійних
additional to this
категорій
category
асоціації,
method of
які пов'язані
association
із
that is
роками,
connected with the years
із циклами,
and the
із
cycles
які пов'язані
which are
із
connected
часом
with
року.
time
Це
of the
весна,
year.
зима,
Season,
осінь
winter,
і
spring, and summer.
щось я пропустила.
I
І
missed
літо,
something.
да.
Summer,
Весна,
yes,
зима, осінь і літо.
and summer. Yeah.
Результати
The
наступні.
outcomes are as follows.
Я поясню
Or
вам,
let me
чому
explain why
асоціативний експеримент
associative
привернув нашу
experiment
увагу
attracted
і
our
цікавість. Ну,
attention
по-перше,
and
він
interest.
дає
Well, first of
нам
all, it gives
можливість
us an
виявити
opportunity to identify
межі
the
даних
interpretational
поняттів,
measures
оскільки
or the
асоціації, які
notions,
добирають
since
досліджувані, вони
associations that
виростають
are
на
in the
внутрішньому
research, they
досвіді,
grow on
вони
the person's
виростають на
experience. They stem
переживаннях,
from
цінностях.
values or worries and concerns, feelings.
Досліджувані не
And
просто
the
обирали
research is not
асоціації, а ми
only about
просили їм
associations, but we ask
дати
them to
пояснення
give a
даним
definition
виборам.
or
І
explanation of
якщо
these
цей
choices.
метод
And if this
використовувати в межах
method
групового
is to
дослідження,
be
що
used
у
in as a
нас,
group
власне,
research method,
зорієнтувались
which we
тут,
actually did,
це дає можливість
that
нам
gives an
через
opportunity to
розуміння
us through
повторюваних
understanding of
асоціацій
repetitive associations
зрозуміти
to understand
сформованість або не сформованість
whether
колективного
the
ставлення
team
до
has
ключових
had the
професійних понять.
formed attitude or non-formed
Перше,
attitude to
те,
the
що ви бачите на цьому
notions.
слайді, це
First, what you could see on this
асоціації
slide
із
is
терміном
association
конфлікт.
with the term of
Найбільше
conflict.
слів
The
реакцій із
biggest
терміном
words and the
конфлікт у
reactions
наших
respond to the word
досліджуваних
conflict
асоціювались саме із
we
зимою.
we
І
had associated with
пояснення,
winter.
найбільш
And
типові
the
пояснення
explanation, the
тут
most
на
typical
слайді, це холод,
explanation
темрява,
was
лють,
cold,
завмирання,
dark, fear,
невизначеність у
frozen,
днях.
uncertainty in day, in
Теж
total days.
не
Then
не такою типовою, але
not
все
very
ж таки
typical, but
значною
still
у своєму виборі
significant
була
in its
асоціація
selection
осінь.
was
І
autumn,
досліджувані
and
підкреслили
and the respond,
підкреслювали
respondents
свої власні
responded and
емоційні
highlighted
специфічні
their
особливості
emotional
переживання
specific
даного періоду.
emotional
Це
response of
дощі,
how they
це
go through
мінливість
this rain.
настрою.
It's when it
І
rains, it's a change of mood, swings,
менш обраними
things of mood.
периферійними
The less common
асоціаціями
associations,
моди,
peripheral ones,
завершення
were
зими, початок
finishing
літа,
of uh,
початок весни і літо.
finish, when
Причому зверну
winter,
вашу увагу на
finishing
те,
of
що
the
всі обрані
winter and
асоціації,
beginning of
вони
spring and summer,
підкреслювали
practicing that all the
некомфортність,
associations, they
складність,
highlighted the feeling of being
стресовість,
uncomfortable, being
депресивність
stressed, being depressed,
переживань даних
and
даних
worries
періодів, які вони
in the given
пов'язували із
periods that they
конфліктом.
connected with the conflict.
Асоціація до терміну
Associations,
медіація.
as for mediation,
Більше слів реакцій,
more words
які
response
обирають досліджувані,
that
вони
that people who
асоціюються
under
із
research
таким
selected,
періодом, як
it's
весна.
connected with such period as
Теплом,
spring.
спокій,
It
легкий
feels
вітер,
warm, calmness,
ниточка
breeze,
спасіння,
hopeful threat of
знову починається життя.
the of shaping it, the
Тобто
beginning
ця
of the rebirth
асоціація,
of the wind,
окрім
of the
емоційно-смислового
life. Besides
забарвлення,
this
містить і
semantic
колективну
meaning, it also
символіку,
means the
період починань,
collective
пробудження життя,
symbolism,
закладання
the beginning
потенціалу
of
у
life,
майбутнє.
the
На
birth of
наступному
life.
слайді
The
я
next slide,
демонструю вам,
I would
я
like to demonstrate
прискорююсь,
to you.
я
I would be speeding
демонструю
up. I
вам
know.
менш обрані
Less selected,
асоціації,
less typical associations
які
that
теж, якщо
also,
зробити
if
якісний
we
аналіз
have a quality
обраних
research
асоціацій, то
into
ми
the selected
можемо говорити
associations,
про
we can
те,
be speaking
що
about
вони говорять про
the fact that they are
особистість,
speaking about
цінність і
personal
сенс
values and senses
медіації.
of mediation.
Психолог.
Psychologist
Більше слів реакцій
or
із
response
терміном
words
психолог
connected
також
with the psychologist also
асоціюються
are
із
associated with
весною.
spring.
І можемо
And
говорити про
we can
те, що
speak
це семантичне
about the
ядро
fact that this
даного
semantic
терміну,
core of this term,
менші
less
вибори або
less
периферійні
choices
вибори
or more
пов'язані із всіма
peripheral
іншими
choices
порами
were
руху, які
are
тут
connected with
є
every other
на
season
даному
here on
слайді.
this slide.
Вже закінчую.
Shall we be winding up? Okay. My dear
Колеги, я
fellow
буду
colleagues,
завершувати.
I will be
Вже не
winding
буду
up.
рухатись
I won't be
до
moving further
результатів
to the
опитування.
results,
Скажу
to the
так,
outcome.
що
Let me just say only
цей
that this
асоціативний експеримент в цілому,
associative
він
experiment in general, it highlights,
окреслив наступні результати.
it
Ну, по-перше,
outlines
вибір
the
асоціацій
following
є
outcomes.
багатоаспектним.
Selection is
Він
multi-aspect.
характеризується як
It is
спільними
characterized
уявленнями
by
символічними,
common
так і особистісними
impression, understanding of both
індивідуальними.
as a group
І
realization and individual
якщо ви
ones.
встигли
And if
помітити,
you have been able to
категорію
notice
психолог і
the category
медіатор
of
у значній
psychologist and
кількості
mediator
досліджуваних
in
мають
many
спільне семантичне
respondents, they have
кінцеве
a
зерно,
common
що дає
semantic
нам можливість
core,
робити
which gives
припущення,
its
що
spring,
ці
which gives us an
категорії
opportunity to think that in the
досліджуваних
mindset
суб'єктів є
of the people under
взаємопов'язаними.
question are interrelated. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for very interesting research by people who are about to graduate. And now let me invite and give the floor to Anastasia Sachuk, a student, a social humanitarian department of the Western Ukrainian University, report psycho-emotional work with the adolescents, violentus in the renewal of law justice. I would be happy if you could just make it in 5 minutes. Let me single out just key points. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for mediation to take a huge advance to the communication with the student. And second, I would like to say, yes, I'm glad that we're united by one goal because together we're stronger. In the context of being stronger, let me say about peculiar work with a psycho-emotional is with older age adolescent teenagers. First of all, what we have is heritage back from Soviet Union. When I went through the practical works, there was a dichotomy. When we would be faced with a man who immediately worked with the violent teenagers, he said, look, such a big one, and still haven't found out what can be done about the city. Well, the question is, by action like this, is he helping to integrate him, to re-socialize? I think no. And another point, very often there is a temptation in this work to do the holding, to warm up somewhere where the parents didn't have warmed up. Like the poor one, let me help them, let me express our excessive empathy. Why this renewal legislation? How can we help people for the frustrated personality in the end, so they could create new synapses, new experiences and integration? Why particularly elder teenagers? Because we have the same problem as money wrote some papers and thesis. There's a lot of people, a huge concentration of people in this age who have no understanding of the social roles of the adequate socialization when people in neurotic organization, they did have a research. Okay, I want to do the split. I want to sing. Most people have some certain background to do some criminal actions. They were somewhere without certain opportunity to get integrated, adequate adaptation to understand how to act, how not to protect and to mobilize like a shell around the nut. And namely, there is a very interesting aspect that Josh Harabarino in his work singled out, and it's a constant accumulation of factors of risks. Namely, here these factors of risk, they lead to this behavior. What we have to do, we do everything else to minimize them. I also want to accentuate not on everything that you know about the aspects of mediation, such peculiarities that work well for this age group. What helps? First of all, framing of the process, both in the group therapy, also in the aspects of mediation, together with those who violate, we set up so we can predict the behavior. When you say what will happen, how the procedure will run, in this case, you are a safe adult. we extract this moment of this uncertainty. So what does it mean calibration? You don't have to be this kind of dog, nodding dog, near your steering wheel. Yes, 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 I understand. But there is another aspect. You physiologically you get calibrate yourself to fit the adolescent, especially when it means this individual mediation, individual communication, to help them to integrate that procedure that is happening, that facilitates the mentalization and empathy. Additionally, symbolization works well and language. I would like to warn you, namely, we regulate the number of questions that are asked because there's a nice aspect, whoever, and your client, whoever you work with, doesn't have to die because of the number of insights. Everything must have some dosage limit to as much as with medication. Be careful with paraphrasing. Burns method. Be careful verbally. We pat the person. In this age, they've got enough resources to consider certain processes and be resilient and endure them, including the internal tension, to regulate the level of psychological organization. In general, law students, I suggest they should read about level of psycho organization, just to understand how this neurotic organization works, how the person works on the borderline stress, because to be resilient, it happens, people sometimes struggle very much. And please believe me, they need to know how to deal with this. Next, unconscious and conscious and coping strategies and protective methods and protection mechanisms are divided into primary and adult. What to do if there is somebody with 30 rational messages say, why not? And what questions, okay, we take notes, what questions there is a resistance and why there is a resistance against these questions. And then there is one more aspect, this Rogerian congruency, when we have this internal from the adolescent who you work with, they have to respond to the external. You know, these people in the city bus, like, could you please pass over the money for the ticket? And there is a pressure. The person may agree to anything. They may not be not necessarily their genuine behavior. Yeah, I will do. Yeah, I will dig up your ground. I'm gone. Maybe just should be shortened. We're looking at the moment and congruency. Then I also would like to mention the key aspect that as for research, it's normal where the procedure of establishing the contact is minimized. Also, we pay attention to the principle of, here I would like to say that, please ask yourself a question, what will be in the retrospective? What about my self-reflection? And the key contact that you must have is the contact with, please don't try, please receive the validation or to be liked by somebody, but please keep this aspect of what has to be understood between the violator and the sufferer or the victim. So it's a romantic reminder for you. Just you don't have to accuse the child because the child is afraid of the dark. The big bad thing is when the adult is afraid of the light. So let's give light and thank you very much. And for this chunk of work that we're all doing. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anastasia. Very pleased, very pleased. Thank you very much for your being so sincere and your being engaged in research and very interesting topic you're in. Dear colleagues, I'm inviting our next speaker, Mr. Filippo Valancina, professor of the University in Milano, in Bergamo, in Italy, the mediator in the Renewal League, and the head, the founder, Big Contra.
Buongiorno a tutti e grazie per l'invito.
Доброго дня всім. Дякуємо дуже за запрошення. Дякуємо за запрошення. Презентацію.
Ok. Il titolo della mia presentazione è L'impotenza del mediatore. Perché per noi che siamo appassionati di mediazione, a volte pensiamo che è possibile fare tutto con la mediazione.
Я обрав саме цю назву, тому що зазвичай ми всі, хто дотичні до медіації, хто захоплюється її, деколи вважаємо, що ми є всесильними, що медіацією можна зробити все, можна подолати все.
Invece di fronte a quest'onda di okusai comprendiamo che di fronte al male possiamo pochissimo.
Але насправді потрібно визнати, що перед цією хвилею штормовою, перед цим морем, з яким ми стикаємось, що ми постаємо зазвичай безсилими.
Condivido con voi la frase della mia maestra, Jacqueline Morinot, che parlava così dello spirito della mediazione.
Я би хотів поділитися з вами фразою моєї наставниці Жаклін Моріно, яка характеризувала гуманістичну медіацію наступним чином.
Lo spirito della mediazione è l'abitudine all'ascolto, all'accoglienza, a stare nel silenzio senza aver paura.
Дух медіації – це здатність слухати, приймати, бути в тиші і не боятися її.
Sapendo che solo qui, nel silenzio,
Знаючи, що лише тут, в тиші,
possono essere accolte le parole di solitudine,
можуть бути почути слова самотності,
dolore,
болю,
paura,
страху,
rabbia,
гніву,
sussurrate e urlate,
які вимовляються пошепки та викрикуються на все горло.
che non hanno ascolto in altri spazi.
Ті слова, яким немає іншого місця для того, щоб бути почутими.
Rifiutate e negate,
Слова, що були відкинуті і заперечені.
che attendono solo orecchie e cuore che li accolgono.
Які лише чекають вух і сердець, які їх сприймуть.
Vi presento come funziona un incontro di mediazione nell'approccio della mediazione umanistica di Jacqueline Morinot.
Я розкажу вам про те, як функціонує зустріч медіаційна в плані, в баченні гуманістичної медіації, тобто це метод Жаклін Моріно.
Le parti che si incontrano, che hanno offeso o sono state offese,
Сторони конфлікту, які взаємно звинувачують одне одну.
sono entrambe persone piene di dolore
Обидві сторони, вони переповнені своїм болем,
e di rabbia
своєю злістю
e di impotenza
і своєю безсилістю.
e sentono che tra di loro c'è un muro per cui ogni parola che dicono sentono che questo muro è invalicabile.
Ми можемо порівняти це з стіною, яка розділяє сторони, і вони, ці слова, їх почуття, вони не можуть пробити стіну.
I mediatori in questo approccio che incontrano le parti sono tre.
Медіатори, які
There are
зустрічають...
four mediators that have us in this situation. There are three of them.
Це не мають бути особи, які
These shouldn't be persons that have special education.
Persone che hanno fatto un percorso
мається на увазі не обов'язково
It
вища
means that they don't have to be higher education, but they must have special training.
coltivano in sé la propria umanità
але в першу чергу це
But
мають
first and foremost, those should be the persons that cultivate their humanity and human approach in themselves.
proporre il proprio volto come uno specchio attraverso cui le persone in conflitto possono sentire riflesso le proprie emozioni.
вони фактично
In
медіатори.
fact, they are mediators. They offer their face, their sight as the mirror where persons can see the reflection of their emotions and their reflection.
Riflette soltanto.
Дзеркало нічого не додає.
The mirror does not add anything. The mirror just reflects
Deve
what is
preoccuparsi di
there.
essere pulito lo specchio.
Єдине, за що
The only thing that we need to worry about is that the mirror is
Non ha un
clean.
obiettivo, non ti dice, non ti invita a essere più bello o più brutto, o a mettere un trucco, a cambiare i capelli, a cambiare la pettinatura, semplicemente ti dice chi sei in quel momento.
дзеркало не має мети
The mirror doesn't have the goal to induce you
нафарбуватися,
to touch up your appearance, to put on makeup, to make you nicer than you are. The mirror needs to reflect you as you are right now, and it needs
E
to be
questo lavoro
clear.
attraverso cui le parti possono finalmente vedersi, perché questo specchio permette di aggirare il muro.
І от саме через цю роботу,
And
через
through
цей
that work, through that reflection, the parties can see and hear and feel each other. The mirror helps to destroy the walls that are the barriers between the parties.
Realtà anche di colui che fino a quel momento ho sentito solo come mostruoso.
таким чином одна
Therefore, one of the parties can see and feel the humanity and humaneness of the opposing party that so far has been perceived only as an opponent.
Ho preparato un intervento che cambierò, ho cambiato adesso.
Пан Філіппо підготував свій виступ, але зараз в останній
I
момент
prepared my presentation, but I changed it fully
L'altro giorno
at the
sono
very
stato
last
in un
minute.
paese in Italia che si chiama Reggio Calabria, e in questo paese sono esposte due statue bellissime che sono i bronzi di Riace.
тому що буквально 2 дні назад
Because
йому
just 2 days ago,
на виставці художньої
I attended the
дві скульптури
exhibition by Calabria and saw some pictures that really inspired me.
Tutto quello che avevo preparato forse era l'unica cosa che volevo davvero condividere con voi, quindi adesso scorrerò tutte le diapositive di cui non parlerò.
І зараз саме останній момент
And right now it's the very last minute. Instead, all of those slides I have prepared, I share last impressions. That is the very essence of what I wanted to say.
Ecco, questi sono i bronzi di Riace.
оці бронзові скульптури
These bronze statues
Sono
by Reggio
due
Calabria
bellezze assolute, pescate in fondo al mare, che sono verticali di fronte al caos del mondo.
ми можемо сказати, що це є
we can say that it is the very absolute beauty, the manifestation of the absolute beauty in these bronze figures that were found in the sea during the archaeological excavations. They show the vertical approach to the chaos of life. They are infallible in at times of chaos.
Ti chiede, ti chiama a una bellezza profonda che ciascuno di noi è chiamato ad essere.
Філіппо відчуває, що
I feel that looking at the statues,
собі маємо відшукати
we need to find that our inbuilt beauty in
Sono
that
guerrieri
depth.
disarmati, non hanno più lo scudo, non hanno più la spada.
Зверніть увагу, що це воїни,
Please pay
але
attention that those are warriors, but they are without arms. They don't
Volevi
have
essere
the
essere un mediatore
swords or the shields.
così bello e di una bellezza che si mette di fronte a ciò che il male deturba.
таким мав би бути
That
медіатор.
is what a mediator should be like. The mediator should radiate the deep beauty
Напроти хаосу,
against the chaos of life, the chaos of
Nello stesso museo
the
al
sea
fondo
that we see.
c'è invece la statua in bronzo di un malato.
І в цьому ж музеї також була
In
бронзова
this
статуя
museum also there was this bronze statue of
Un
a
malato
person who
che
is
prega
ill,
per essere guarito.
хворий,
a
який
person
молиться.
who is ill and who is praying to
Ecco,
be
credo che
cured.
in realtà forse come mediatore posso essere così impotente da offrire la mia limitatezza, la mia fragilità umana, perché le persone che mi incontrano non si sentono giudicate e possano sentire la possibilità di cambiare.
Therefore, this statute also shows the mediator's metaphor, the metaphor that the mediator is imperfect. He shows the party that we are all people, we are all human, we are not perfect, we are ready to accept each other
Per me
as we
questa
are.
è l'impotenza del mediatore.
The statute shows the power and the lack of power of the mediator. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. It's highly important for Ukrainians today also to understand that our strength and our capacity is to be weak, but to achieve what we planned by being vulnerable. Next speaker will be online. I give the moderation to Lilia. We invite
професора
Avsana
екологічного
Avtona
вирішення конфліктів, Університет Східної Фінляндії.
from East Finland
Доповіді. Екологічна співпраця
about
та
ecological
розбудова практики.
cooperation and dispute settlement in Finland. The floor is yours.
Hello and good afternoon. My name is Lasse Peltonen. I work at University of Eastern Finland as Professor of Environmental Governance and Conflict Resolution. And I wanted to share some perspectives from Finland today on environmental collaboration and conflict resolution as a field of practice and also of university education. And I'm really honored to be with you, with Ukraine going through very hard times, and in times of conflict, it's humbling to be with you in this conference and speaking about these topics of conflict resolution. I sent my presentation this morning. I'm not sure if it has arrived, or is it possible for me to share my presentation from the screen? Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we see.
Excellent. So yes, environmental collaboration and conflict resolution, building this field in Finland. And I just want to start with a study that I directed 2 years ago. We made a study on different forms of mediation in Finland and the kind of the status of mediation and the development possibilities in Finland. And we have a range of different kinds of mediation in Finland. This picture is in Finnish, but the blue arrows or the blue segments are mediation forms where we have a legal basis, and then we have green ones that don't have a legal basis but are based on like voluntary processes and mediation or conflict resolution organized, for instance, by civil society actors. And I want to focus on environmental mediation, which is links with public policy mediation. And I heard this morning the first speaker was mentioning that administrative courts have been interested in mediation in Ukraine, but it's not part of the legal system. Also in Finland, administrative law does not really recognize mediation. So when I'm talking about environmental collaboration, conflict resolution, and mediation, it is kind of in a unofficial or voluntary capacity. My own background reaches comes from environmental policy research. So I'm not a lawyer. My professional background is in environmental policy, environmental sociology research. And in this capacity, I've been interested in, for instance, urban planning related conflicts and environmental conflicts for over 20 years. During my career, I have worked in environmental and land use planning type research. And during in the 2010s, we had a pilot project in Finland called Mediation in Land Use and Environmental Disputes. So I was running that. And then after that, I had a one-year visit to the United States where I familiarized myself with the consensus building tradition. So the Harvard program on negotiation, Harvard model on negotiation and mediation applied to complex multi-party public policy issues as conducted in the CBI, in the Consensus Building Institute. After that year, with my wife, Jonna, we founded Accordi Oy, a company in Finland, basically the first of its kind and still the only company of its kind in Finland who is doing environmental mediation, environmental conflict resolution in the capacity of third-party neutral in various types of processes. So we have 10 years of practice in the field. And after that, I was then invited to this professorship at University of Eastern Finland, where we've been developing the field also as a form of a university education. So there's this kind of practical, maybe I can call myself a pracademic, practitioner in the field through our company, but also a professor at our university. And the company, Accordi, which has been in existence for 10 years now, acts as a neutral party or mediator in public policy and decision-making processes that involve multiple parties, conflicting interests, and complex issues. And this is in the kind of public arena. So when I think about conflict resolution, I most often do not talk about mediation when I talk about our field, because I see it as a form of conflict resolution that is applicable and should be applicable kind of before conflicts actually escalate. So these are methods that are similar to mediation. They rely on negotiated processes and facilitation or third-party neutral assistance in those processes, but they can be integrated in various kinds of planning, strategy, and other decision-making processes in the field of environment and natural resource governance. So it's kind of going upstream in the conflicts stream. And the tradition, as I mentioned, that we've been familiarizing ourselves with and applying and adopting in Finland arises from the Harvard tradition, which has been developed by Larry Susskind and others at MIT into this tradition of consensus building, which is in the United States context typically also referred to as collaboration, collaborative governance, and other terms are also used of this type of practice. So it aims at resolving multi-party public problems. It's a voluntary process, involves face-to-face meetings and interaction, and the processes are structured as negotiations with the help of a neutral third party. And in the consensus building tradition, it's kind of a cyclical process, and we have introduced the Finnish audience to this approach, and we have Finnish language publications on the topic, where we have been showing also through its application in some of our cases, for instance, in forest management disputes, how this can be applied in Finland. So basically, there are different areas of application of this kind of work: conflicts or situation analysis, negotiated planning processes or strategy program processes between stakeholders, Also, joint fact-finding is one application where there are conflicting facts, and the process is about finding out together what the facts are. And we can also talk about mediation between organized interests. So, for instance, we have negotiated and mediated a process where the wind power industry in Finland has negotiated with the Reindeer Husbandry Association about what are operational rules for wind power companies in the reindeer herding and reindeer husbandry areas in northern Finland. Also, collaborative approaches to drafting statutes and regulations. So we're looking and helping, for instance, the Ministry of Agriculture and Forestry to build better processes of stakeholder engagement when they are drafting, for instance, statutes that rule fisheries. One example, I'll just show that very quickly, a case that has also been documented through our research is a local forest management conflict, which was mediated earlier on by Accordi. And there's a research publication that studied the results of the process. So it's also we are trying to make sure that there's more and more documentation and research in the field so that we can also show what these methods can be used for. One of the fields that we're typically involved is the green transition. So investments in renewable energies and different types of conflicts that they create. I'm sorry for the dog in the back. At the university, we have several courses targeted the topic. These are master's level courses. We don't actually have a mediation program. There's some mediation courses in our law school, but I'm placed at the different departments, at the department and a program of environmental policy, and there we are running, for instance, these courses on community engagement and conflict resolution, also a summer school 1-week course on environmental collaboration and conflict resolution, and then a Finnish language course, which is also offered to in the form of adult education for instance, environmental managers and public officials working with environmental conflicts. And our work with a colleague of mine, Irmeli Mustalahti, a professor colleague, we have also expanded this work of environmental collaboration and conflict resolution, and the course program has been organized also not only in Finland, but for instance in Africa, and we have invited an international audience of students also to Eastern Finland, to Joensuu, where we've organized these courses. So that's just a quick look at some of our practice and links to university education. I'm really happy that I could be part of your conference, and thank you very much for your attention. Happy to answer any questions or involve in further communications if you are interested in this topic. Thanks.
Дякуємо, пане Лассе Пелтонен. Передаю слово.
Thank you, dear Lasse. I give the floor to Christina.
Тривалий час продуктивно працюємо.
We have been working very productively for a long time, and now we can have a lunch break and meet at 14:30 and continue our work.
And now we can meet half an hour later. The coffee break was only coffee and some snack, but the full lunch is not only with sweets, but also snacks, and it's waiting for you exactly where you had your coffee.